The following program is intended for an adult audience. It may contain adult themes and strong language. This program is separate from my efforts or those of any guest with any other agency or institution, public or private. It is intended to provoke thought and discourse and to improve how humans can educate one another. My guest today is Morgan Torres-Unger. Morgan currently teaches mathematics and science to 7th grade students at a K-8 public charter school serving about 1,000 students in California's Central Valley. She's previously taught in elementary, middle, and high school environments, including 5th, 6th, 7th grade, and high school English language arts. Morgan also coaches cross-country, basketball, soccer, volleyball, and track and field. And like me, she adores the outdoors and cherishes the respite, solace, and insight-provoking wonder of trips into nature. Morgan completed her bachelor's degree at California State University Stanislaus, having studied psychology and child development. She experienced education first as a substitute teacher before completing her teaching credential and Master of Education degree from University of the Pacific. Morgan and I met outside of education and found that we not only teach similar content to similar populations of students, but we also share similar teaching philosophies. Her naturally creative and jovial personality seemed to have helped her navigate a combination of freedoms and requirements in teaching different ages and subjects, and to develop strategies which really work for her to increase engagement, encourage safe failure, and most importantly, to create a safe learning environment. It's these strategies and tactics from Morgan's personal teacher toolbox which I hope to have fun unpacking and talking about. A theme Morgan and I visit from multiple angles during the conversation is the concept of creatively and enthusiastically trying new things by both children and adults, embracing the concept of safe failure. In that spirit, I'd like to open with a quote from novelist James Joyce. "A man of genius makes no mistakes. His errors are volitional and are the portals of discovery." This is the Grand Unified Podcast, a production of Links Learning Labs. I'm your host, Jake Schulke. The best way to support us is to subscribe on YouTube, where we can be found at Grand Unified Podcast. You can also comment, review, and follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other popular platforms. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Grand Unified Podcast. And now, my conversation with my revered colleague and friend, Miss Morgan. Morgan.
Yes.
Miss Morgan.
Miss Morgan.
Miss Morgan.
Yes.
Why? Tell me about Miss Morgan. Have you always been Miss Morgan to your kids?
In my 6 years of teaching, the first 2 weeks, I was Miss Torres-Unger, or according to, a few of my students, Miss Torres or Miss Unger. That just kind of got on my nerves. So we went straight with first name. I was like, you know what? Okay. If we're not going to use all of it, which I understand there's a lot of letters. Let's go ahead and go with the first name, Miss Morgan. Had a good alliteration.
Miss Morgan.
Worked for me.
Yeah. Kids like an alliteration. They don't know why, but they like it.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
What age was that, your first year?
5th grade.
Grade 5.
Grade 5.
10-ish, 11-ish year olds?
Yes.
Start 10, turn 11, basically? Okay.
Exactly. Incredible age. Absolutely love 5th grade.
What do you like about 5th grade?
5th grade is right after...
4th grade.
It is right after 4th grade. It is immediately after missions. It's right after the mission report.
California history.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So once you're done with your California mission report, you go ahead and go into 5th grade, and you are more curious, and you are less sassy. You're trying to figure out the things within the class. You're not super focused on disrespect or showing off in those ways that are pushing those boundaries of, like, that we see in the upper middle school of little bit at times disrespect or sassiness that just I didn't ever see with my 5th graders. I got a lot more curiosity, and that was also the age where I was able to start joking with them a little bit more, to where they weren't as sensitive. Sarcasm was a 5th grade introduction. 4th grade, at times they could pick it up. They might get a little hurt feelings, but 5th grade is where I could incorporate a little bit more of my personality into what I was doing, and that was fun. And that was the first grade that I felt like, oh, I think I could be me while still doing my job. What a coincidence.
Had you ever thought about that before that experience? Like, how does my own personality fit in with a group of children, or what age?
No. Before I started teaching, so that first 5th grade year was based on my last 6 months of subbing. So I was subbing in this charter school at Tracy Learning Center, and they were really cool in regards to providing me with a lot of opportunities. And so when I was able to experience all of these different grades and whatnot, I actually was able to do my first year of coaching. And in this first year of coaching cross country for the high school team, at being a substitute and subbing at that school every single day, I realized like, oh, the strategies that I use were really just to sound like the coaches that I had when I was in high school and when I was in elementary school. And so I realized that those parts of me, the things that I grew up hearing and learning, were still relevant to those that were trying to experience the things that I had experienced when I was younger. So when I found out that, and I realized the level of, I would say, consistency and just overall similar experiences, able to have that connection with them and say, hey, when I was this age, this is what I did. Hey, when I was this age, this is what my teacher told me. This is how I felt about it. It pissed me off, or it really, hyped me up. Let's try this. How does this work for you? So talking to them, not as my friend, but the way that I talk to them is similar the way that I talk to my friends. I talk to them as human beings. So I don't dumb anything down. I don't hold back in regards to, if I'm going to love you, I'm going to love you fully. If I'm going to joke with you, we're going to joke fully. And I, knowing those boundaries with each individual, is a level of, class and respect. But finding those limitations within at least the grade of fifth was inspiring to me of, oh, I could do this. Okay, with this group, this is what I can do. This is our comfort level. This is our understanding and perspective. How can I grow from this? How can I relate to them? And they seemed to connect with me more as I was growing with them. Of like, hey, I'm figuring it out too. Let's do it at the same time.
How secure did you feel in that?
Not.
Oh, okay.
Not secure in the sense of like, I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but what I was doing felt right. So in regards to like Maslow, so we'll get into Maslow, the way that I figured out, how do I connect with anybody? What are your needs? What are you coming from? How did you sleep last night? Are you hungry? What did you have for breakfast? Okay, let's just start there, and then we'll talk about math, and then we'll talk about science. But if I can't get your needs as a human and your personality and your wants, if I don't understand those, we're not going to connect. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to connect on a level that I need to connect with my students in order for them to go above their or beyond their comfort boundary that they've set for themselves. So it's wasn't secure, but it was open-ended.
I like that you describe it that way, that they're taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting themselves in unfamiliar territory.
Absolutely.
They're very likely to experience failing at something.
Mm-hmm. Me too. They get to watch me. That's the best part.
That is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're good at it, if you're good at letting them watch you fail.
You got to do it with humility, or else they'll eat you up.
They do.
Sometimes.
Man, that really makes me think. If you work at a school with enough teachers at it,
mm-hmm.
there's going to be at least a teacher that the kids say naughty things about.
Oh.
A teacher that they don't really care for.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be that teacher.
No.
You don't want to be.
We want the cool
Mr.
teacher
So-and-so's a whatever, Mrs. Whatever hates me. She's a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've heard it. If you've worked at any school.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you've heard it.
Oh, the labels are.
And you've probably had it said about you.
Mm-hmm. We've had some good ones, though. I haven't heard any terrible labels yet. I'm sure, they'll come with whatever student doesn't take my love the way that I intend, but
Well, if you've got enough kids on your caseload, like one of them's not going to connect with you.
Sure.
Like 100 and whatever kids, 150, 200 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you teach and where, and like that's a lot of kids.
Oh yeah, I got 60, and I'm still working on those 60.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You got them for 2 subjects, so you have the same kids for math and for science.
Yes.
Do you get them for a block, or you get them for like a period and they come back later? Like, what's that look like?
So we have a 2-hour block for each of my groups. So I have 2 groups before lunch. I have my homeroom, and then I have my 3rd, 4th period.
Okay.
So in that 2-hour block, we help kind of break up those subjects to where it's I'm math and science. So we teach majority math, or we start with math, and then once the math lesson is finished, we start into science. So in regards to having set times and explicit times for science, it's not set just yet. But this being my first year teaching 7th grade, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm covering my math in a level that's quick enough, not too quick, but still leaving myself with enough time to cover the science content that they're going to need, especially when they take their, state test next year in 8th grade.
All the science teachers know.
Stressed.
Anybody at every school district knows, like, what comes first? ELA and math. Why? Because those scores are scrutinized. Like their CASP test in California, or whatever standardized test a state has, like that gets scrutinized the most.
Yep.
Are they literate, number 1? Are they numerate, number 2? And then all the other stuff comes last. But since you have them for a block, there's some cool, I mean, if you're going to stick with that population and that setup for a while, there's a lot of cool opportunities to like integrate the 2, go project based.
100%.
Like,
We do a lot of that.
that's awesome. You get to get creative then.
Yes.
You seem like you have a brain that likes being creative.
I do. I try my best. So, like, for example, there's a project that I have been able to give no matter what grade that I teach. So I've done 3rd grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and my sophomores in English. And it's called Genius Hour, and it's not anything that I created. I believe I'll figure out what the guy's name is that had kind of created it. But the concept is it came from Google's 20% time, and having that we will pay you to work on a passion project as long as it benefits our company.
Yeah.
Give me what you got at the end of the quarter. So essentially I'm giving my students that same opportunity of like, hey, you're going to be a teacher at the end of this trimester. What do you want to learn? That's something that you haven't learned. And how is it either going to be, how is it going to change the world? How is it going to impact your community? How is it going to, et cetera, et cetera? Each trimester is a different theme. And so providing them with that ability and opportunity to show what they know as well as their own personal interest helps with a really huge project that we do each trimester that it's really fun to learn about the kids in that way.
Oh my God, yeah.
It is incredible to see the things that they've learned. I had a kid that was afraid of flying. And so they actually had an uncle that was a pilot. And so what they chose to do for their Genius Hour is they said, Miss Morgan, I want to learn how to fly a plane if the pilot were to ever go down. So he spent the entire trimester coming up with the basics of what you would need to do in order to fly a plane, the different components in the aircraft that you would need to pay attention to, certain radio signals that you would say based on, whatever the situation might be. And so for them to work through their fears and then work through their curiosities in a structured, safe place, I mean, is that not school, right? Is that not what we hope for school?
That's what real learning looks like when it's like, in that sense, project oriented. Like this kid had to figure something out in order to achieve this goal of knowing what to do. And giving them that autonomy. Like that kid probably learned a lot about stuff that we do in 8th grade science about like the sum of forces and what, lift versus gravity and thrust versus drag. And those are the only 4 things that really influence how an airplane moves.
Absolutely.
And that's really cool.
It was awesome. And so to have that type of project with 60 kids, it is the standards that we cover are high school, college, elementary, also not even a standard at times in regards to content that we're talking about. So having that as a structured way to learn and show your learning and show your passions was really inspiring.
That's so cool. I'd love to hear more about some of these projects you're seeing in the kids, like their own passion projects.
Oh, they are. I'll have some of them post to YouTube. They're doing some, I had a kid that made a rocket launcher. He wanted to understand the concept of a rocket launcher. So he created that, and we launched his little rocket outside of school, and his parents had come, and it was a really cool experience. That particular student had just different struggles in his life in regards to learning issues, whatnot, social issues, but them taking this project and able to be the star of the show was a confidence that I hadn't seen yet within this guy. So it was, again, really cool to see all these babies.
That's awesome. Good for you. Man, there's a lot of advantages in having that big block with the kids, it sounds like.
Yes. One of the cool parts about having such a large block is being able to have opportunities for transition. So transition periods. So from going from math to science, I'll do a brain break. My brain breaks include, a plethora of different activities that we can do when it goes to, it comes to going outside for 5 to 7 minutes, go play whatever sport or activity that you want, go run on the field, go lay down on the ground, don't care. We can do a would you rather as a brain break. We can do a catchphrase round as a brain break. But just having that opportunity of a time to play as a brain break has been phenomenal in regards to, hey, you do my task, let's complete math. We'll do an awesome brain break, your choice. We'll switch into science, my choice. Then you get to leave, your choice. Lunch, whatever it might be, or your break. Let's figure that out. Let's get through it. What do you need? What does your body need right now? How are we feeling? Are we anxious? Do we need to do some breath work, before our science test? So we're switching from math. Maybe we have a science test. Go outside for 3 to 4 minutes, come back inside, do a little breath work, come inside, ready, be done for science, and we're logging in. Let's get it going.
That's cool. A little bit of choice.
Yes.
But showing them that you value wherever they're at today.
Willing to listen, or try to.
Yeah. So you're doing 7th graders.
Yes, first year.
First year doing 7th grade.
Woo.
When you got them in the fall, what'd you do to figure out where they were at math-wise?
Gave them an assessment. So I gave them a 6th grade end-of-year assessment, seeing what we knew, California state standards. And from there, I found that my spectrum of understanding with my kids, my zone of proximal development is large.
Broad.
Yes, it was incredibly broad. So starting the year with where are my kids at? Where do I need to get them to before I even start my curriculum? Where math we're already behind. It's the way that you should approach teaching any subject. Give them either the year prior, couple years prior, seeing the end of year assessment for that subject, grading that. What do we need foundationally before we even start day one of our curriculum? Hopefully in that first 2 weeks of school. Not necessarily the first, but in that second week when you start that curriculum. What should we have practiced for that first 2 weeks? So that was kind of the focus. And what I had noticed with my 7th graders is that they needed foundational fraction skills for their math. We needed to practice multiplication again. Our times tables. Yeah.
It's like 3rd grade.
Absolutely. It is like 3rd grade. So bringing in the columns and arrays and showing them like, okay, this is why 3 times 5 is 15. Here's the picture for it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the, physical representation. Now we got to get some memorizing into the book, into our repertoire. Same thing with fractions, pulling out Cuisenaire rods. That's something that I had used when I was teaching fractions in 3rd grade, for them to visually see the breakdown of what it means to have a third of something. So they're Cuisenaire rods, you can find them on Amazon. They're an incredible resource for anybody teaching and working with fractions. And you can find activities on Teacher Pay Teachers, all different sorts of sites to be able to help you with coming up with foundational lessons for covering those fraction concepts before, you need to talk about why we flip our fraction when we're dividing. Keep, change, flip. Why do we do that? So that really helps when you bring in some tools.
That's awesome. It's so good to know.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing the next generation science standards right, there's a bunch of math in it in middle school. Like, they have to have basic math skills, and encountering kids that don't have the foundations. And as a, somebody who I could probably figure out how to teach math, but I'm not good at it. I'm not a math teacher.
Yeah.
I could teach sciences. We just have to know how to use math to get that done. Like, we got to talk about, if we're talking about forces in motion, we have to talk about acceleration. We have to be able to talk about rates, which means you need to know what a proportion is and a ratio and then a rate. You need to know all those things.
A little constant of proportionality too, if we're getting some scaling going on.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Then, like right now, the unit we're in, we're doing Earth and space science. We're making scale models of things. We're scaling. Like, you need to know what a scale factor is.
Absolutely.
So that's an 8th grade math standard. Do you know it? Okay. How do I scaffold that? How do I teach it? And everything from, can you go decimal, fraction, decimal? Can you convert things? Do you even know about the metric system of measurement and a decimal-based system? Like, you're supposed to first learn that exists in grade 5, and by the end of grade 7 be a master of it. And then when you get an 8th grader who's like, what's a meter? I don't know how big a centimeter is. Like, ooh, sheesh. Okay, all right, all right, we can do this.
Yeah,
we got this.
Sure can.
We have to science.
Put the sweatband on.
We can't science without a metric system. Not well. We'll make boo-boos. We'll blow up some spacecraft if we do that.
Real hard.
Yeah.
Real hard.
So many kids. A lot of the kids, huge proportion of the kids, even before the blip, right? Before the COVID.
The vid.
Before that vid, that dirty vid. There were kids that were not, quote unquote, at grade level.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the hell that means. There were kids that weren't where we wanted all of the kids who had been alive that number of years to be.
Yes.
And now it's more, and it seems like that range is broader.
Oh, it is unreal.
Yeah.
The post-COVID era of education is a different beast than pre-COVID.
You taught in it a couple years before the blip.
Sure did.
What do you notice being different?
Emotional regulation.
That is so interesting that comes to your mind first.
Yeah, it was emotional regulation, attention span. Just overall, I think discipline, intrinsic discipline. If students didn't have that consistent schedule at home like that we would make them go through every day, logging in on your Chromebook and being able to walk around your house doing whatever, turning off your camera, that's not quite the same academic level of, rigor that they would be experiencing within a classroom, of having to sit down, of having to ask, if you want to go and do something, hey, can I do this right now in the middle of your lecture? Can I go ahead and, do this, versus being able to have those privileges. And not having sometimes adults or parents that have the knowledge, training, experience to give that constructive feedback of how to regulate themselves emotionally, how to identify when we need to start coping, how to cope. I noticed that a lot. It's a lot more of me really needing to connect to the human factor. That's always been my game plan, but really connecting to the human factor and using that as more of my foundation, other than I'm your teacher. You're supposed to listen. It's, I'm Miss Morgan. I love you. You know I love you. You're going to listen because I love you and you love me in that reciprocal way. That's what I've noticed a little bit more post-COVID, is that I have to have that relationship with my students in order for a good chunk of buy-in from them to be able to do some of the things that I ask them to do that are challenging for them.
You've got a Maslow first.
Yeah. Before you bloom.
You got a Maslow before you can bloom. Yeah. Absolutely.
How many times have you heard that in PD?
Because it's true. Like, cliches
100%.
Cliches are true. And yeah, you got a Maslow before you can bloom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, if a kid doesn't have a home, it's going to be hard to get them to do algebra.
Mm-hmm. If they're hungry and they have a headache, they're probably not listening.
Yeah. If they're worried about something going on in their home life and what that's going to be like when they have to go back home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So way more of tapping into the human of my student versus just tapping into the student post-COVID.
At my site where I'm at, I noticed that not a lot of teachers get enough feedback. Like, we're a big enough school, we have like a dean whose whole job is like discipline.
Cool.
And difficult conversations and that
Cool.
kind of, like, we're at 7-8 school and we've got like 1,400 kids, which is preposterous.
You mean the big bucks?
It's way too many humans to have in the same place at the same time, especially when they're all in the throes of early puberty.
Oof.
Ugh.
Just finished teen talk. That is overwhelming. The estrogen and testosterone is... Oof.
Testosterone dripping down the walls. Everybody has their first armpit hairs. They're all getting...
The stashes are thin, aren't they?
The stashes are creepily thin.
Right where we left them.
And it's as a man, you would think I'd be more aware of this, but the NARBs, the NARBs, the no apparent reason boners, they're happening, poor kids.
100%.
They're definitely happening.
You can't present right now? Noted.
No.
We'll go ahead and circle back.
Right. Yeah. We'll circle back. You need a moment to think about it.
Sure.
Confer with your colleagues and we'll come back to you.
Report back now.
Report back. Yeah. I'll bet you have a great idea. I can't wait to hear it in 5 to 7 minutes.
Poor babies.
Yeah. And then all the things that young ladies go through at that age, the poor damn things.
Whew, figuring out why it sucks so bad.
And now they're going through that, but they've probably, since we skipped a couple years of maturing, they have the emotional skills of like an 11-year-old, but they're like 13.
Yep.
And they're like probably menstruating and growing body parts and shapes that didn't exist before.
And in pain.
And in physical pain. And for the boys and the girls, coming to grips with like what sexual attraction feels like and curiosity, and boys are like turning into weird, creepy people for the rest of their lives. It never gets better.
There's no growing out of that.
We're perpetually 12-year-old boys going,
well, we're doing our best out here, ladies. Just do your best, okay? We'll teach them. We'll help them.
That's it. Well, the men need to figure out how to teach them too.
100%.
That's kind of our job. Yeah, so all that stuff is happening to a kid who 5 years ago was getting a couple years of coaching from multiple adults leading up to that.
Absolutely.
I have to imagine that 5th grade teachers, 6th grade teachers, there was stuff happening, at least questions being answered, conversations being had to prep kids for, like, in middle school, your body's going to just throw a tantrum.
Oh, so pissed.
Whatever chromosomes you have and parts with which you were born, your body is going to throw a tantrum.
Buckle up, buttercup.
Yeah, and your brain is going to be subject to that tantrum.
Drink your water.
Do you remember much about middle school when you were a kid? When you were one of
Ooh.
those tweens, as they are called?
Well, I had headgear when I
Ooh.
was in middle school.
In middle school, you wore
I wore
headgear. You had some like
headgear.
overbite, overjet situation.
Underbite. I looked like a bulldog, according to my mother, with the most, obviously, every single shred of love
So you
that
had
she
like the
could
headgear
give to
that
me.
strapped your whole jaw in.
Uh-huh.
Oh my,
I had a pad on my chin and on my forehead,
Miss Morgan, no.
big wires around my face, and then rubber bands at first to grip onto my teeth to help move my upper jaw forward, my lower jaw keeping it back. And woo, that was a doozy of a year, and that was my 7th grade year.
So social things went perfectly.
Oh, I was killing it. Everyone knew me. Every single person knew me. My name? No. Headgear Girl? Hell yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, I was popular.
That stinks.
You know,
That sucks butt.
character building, let me tell you. Let me tell you, my character is shining.
It's like a boy named Sue, though.
Mm.
Like, thanks, Johnny Cash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bless you. Yeah, it was a lot of learning, obviously, about bullying and how I handle that in my classroom. I have one picture of me with my headgear on. That entire 7th grade year, I did not let anyone take my picture. It was like, no, stop. Don't do that. So this one picture that I ended up finding, it was crumpled up in my mom's stuff because I had crumpled it up. She had taken it. Morgan, give me that. Morgan Elizabeth, give me this. Uncrumpled it, tried to, almost scrapbook it.
Your middle name is not Elizabeth.
I swear to you. Tell me. Say it now. What is it?
Off air. We'll talk about.
Love it. Okay.
Okay.
So crumpled up picture. Mom found it. Therefore, I found it. This is my profile picture for my Google Classroom, my Gmail, all of that. And I start off day one with showing this picture. Of course, a huge laugh. And then I leave it up for a while. And I leave it up for even longer. And then I stand next to it and I smile. And then I usually have one or two kids go, Is that you? And when we make that connection of, hey, that was me, this is me now, imagine what that baby went through. So we have our moment of silence for baby Miss Morgan. And then we also have the understanding, as well as the approach from Miss Morgan of, this baby had a hard time. None of my babies now will experience what that baby had. Just so you know.
When you do that, what kind of body language do you notice in the kids? How do you think they're feeling and thinking?
Oh,
When they see you and they realize that picture is a human being person standing right in front of me.
They, at first, after they had their giggles, I saw a level of understanding within the first couple of days of my students. They seemed at ease. My kids that are my chronic jokers, little more upright in their chair, little, not necessarily apprehensive, but a little bit more on their toes, we'll say.
Like they realize,
oh, I might not be able to crack those heavy jokes with this particular teacher in the room, or she might not allow that, or this isn't appropriate in her room.
Okay.
So covering and making sure that we have that understanding of a baseline of bullies suck. I know what bullies look like and how they act and how they're sneaky. So we're going to try and eliminate that. And I got your back if you ever feel like you're being bullied, because I know what it feels like.
What do you think the difference is between, because the kids mess with each other, right? They tease.
100%.
They
You have to
taunt.
learn.
Yeah. And and some of that is just applying gentle social pressure that teaches kids what unacceptable and acceptable behavior is.
The boundaries.
The boundaries, right? Because kids are going to test. And then people are going to tell them what is okay and not okay, and what makes you more and less likable, even.
100%.
Which is a thing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, not everybody is perfect exactly as you are. Like, if you're a jerk, you need to learn how to not be a jerk.
Mm-hmm. People aren't going to want to be in your team, or they're going to ask to not be in your group.
Yeah. So there's a line there between what is age-appropriate application of social pressures.
Yes.
And then what is, oh, you're a bully, you're a jerk. Like, where's that line? How do you see it and know what it is?
Private conversations.
Okay.
Private conversations always with any students that I'm giving any sort of discipline or just trying to figure out what's going on. Always private conversations. And I find that a lot of the times if I have a student in a private conversation that is still continuing to be disrespectful and whatnot, that to me is a bully. And, we have a different approach when we're talking with students like that. But what I notice majority of the time is that when I have that one-on-one conversation and interaction with those students that, might crack that next level threshold joke or whatnot, pushes that limit or boundary, we have that one-on-one talk of like, hey, what does that mean? What does that mean when you say that? Would you tell your mom that? Is that something you would share with your younger sibling? Why not? And for them to be reflective on it is how I know that I have a kid that was learning their boundaries versus I have a kid that's a bully. Because you have to practice pushing those boundaries. And if it's not safe to practice pushing your boundaries here in middle school, you're going to practice that in high school. If it's not safe to practice it in high school, you're going to practice it when you're an adult. And depending on the level of practice that you're doing, you might get caught up in some stuff that you really aren't wanting to get caught up in.
100%.
So
or just have a sad social life, or a sad romantic life, or a dysfunctional relationship.
100%.
Not know that, like, oh, you're kind of a doo-doo head.
Middle school is the time to practice. If you're a middle school teacher, have that grace. It is their time to practice pushing those boundaries. It is your job to help draw them out. It's the whole point. Be a better human. Teach them to be better humans.
That has to be the whole point of middle school.
That is it.
And hopefully.
I can teach an adult math.
Oh, yeah.
But
absolutely.
But trying to teach an adult to be a good human.
You teach calculus to a 15-year-old or a 50-year-old.
Exactly.
But if you've been a jerk your whole life, that's harder.
You're not going to be invited to the poker nights.
That's right. Is that why I'm not getting invited anymore?
Stop it. I told you that you're planning the next one.
Okay. Yeah, I will. Definitely. So you see these kids and you try to notice where they're at and what they might need. What's their freaking deal? But surely you have a bunch of kids that are in completely different places as far as basic needs unmet.
Yeah.
So that, and you've got, 20 to 30 of them in a room at a time?
About 30.
About 30 at a time. That's a lot.
It's a chunk.
That's a lot of little bodies and a lot of little personalities and a lot of energy.
12 to 13.
To wrangle.
It's a doozy.
12 to 13. Like,
we're becoming teenagers in my class.
Becoming teenagers. So you're like, the hormones are just assaulting their brains.
Oh, yeah.
Just testosterone is just boom, boom, boom in their head.
Oh, yeah. Overwhelming.
They're like, you know what I need to do? I need to have a really terrible attitude.
I need to shadow box all of my friends in the back of my classroom with my teacher telling us, please sit down for the 30th time.
Right. But that's healthy.
Absolutely.
That's how human development is supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
12-year-olds are not supposed to sit in straight rows and face forward / at devices.
No.
Their brains are not evolved to do that. They're supposed to play and fight and tease and taunt and run and jump and throw things.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely evolved to throw things. And wrestle, oh my God.
Wow.
Their brains know there's a couple things you need to learn to do when your body's turning into a man body.
Mm-hmm.
You need to learn how to get your body to do physical things.
Yep.
And that might include fighting other people.
And do them well.
And do them really well. And then there is a hierarchy to just being an organism that exists,
Mm-hmm.
period, whether it's whatever. And so all these kids, like, what do 12 and 13 and 14-year-old boys want to do? Play, fight, wrestle, run, throw things.
Yep.
And what are they not allowed to do in the classroom?
All of it.
All of those, because that makes it really hard to, like, be indoors safely, especially when I need to have, like, science junk out for you to experiment with.
Glass
Or chemicals,
fire.
or even a rubber band.
Oh.
Rubber band.
You mean a weapon?
Yes, a rubber band is one of the most useful things in your 8th grade science lab, learning about physics stuff. Also, the bane of my existence, the rubber band.
Get those big old snaps that you get on
Rubber
each
band
other's
snaps,
skin.
rubber band guns, and shooting the rubber bands.
You should target practice.
Yeah, which is like I'm not 14 anymore. I'm like almost 3 of those. And rubber bands are fun.
Oh, 100%. I don't miss. I don't miss.
Man.
Get those little sleepers. Just kidding. I let my sleepers sleep.
It's a hard thing, man, to find that balance between these kids are doing exactly what their brains are supposed to do to develop in a healthy way. Also, please sit down and shut the hell up.
Yeah. How do we get from jumping to running to throwing to sitting in our seat for 30 minutes and writing stuff down on paper by ourselves?
Which your brain is not structured to do.
No. It is not fun. Those times are not fun.
So where's that balance point? Like I talked about this with Rob. Like I gotta look up who this comic is. He has this bit about kids learning math, and he's like, kids don't want to learn math. You have to force them to learn math against their will.
Damn near.
Do you have you got to have a handful of kids that like think math is cool and fun and like love when they get a new thing, right?
Oh, my mathletes? 100%.
Mathletes.
100%.
So you've got a handful.
Yep.
But that's by far the minority.
Yep. 6 out of my 60.
So what can you do then with these kids who they're like in the throes of puberty and their brains want to do other developmental things? Now we have to sit in Miss Morgan's class for like 2 whole hours. And like half of it, we got to do number stuff.
Yeah.
And what, lady? Letters can be numbers now too?
Oof. Yeah, they
Stop
were
it.
pissed. Yeah, they were so pissed with variables. They're like, please. Wrong teacher, Miss Morgan.
So what do you do? Well, how do you make that, like, they moan and groan? Are they suffering? Like, how do you navigate that?
You have them become the theorists in math. You have them make the discoveries. So like, for example, pi, right? Pi 3.14159, et cetera, et cetera. It's talking about, when we're talking about circumference, diameter, we're talking about pi, we're talking about circles. Okay? So in order to get that 3.14, a lot of people don't know where that number even comes from. Okay? But in order to find the circumference of a circle, circumference equals pi times d. Okay? So, but what is pi? Pi is 3.14, the diameter. So in order to find that out, what I had my kids do is I had them get a string, had them find anything circular in the class, perfectly circular. What they did is they measured that diameter, the line segment that goes completely through the center of a circle from one end to the other, and they got that number with a ruler. Then what they did is they took that same piece of string and they wrapped it around the outside of the circle. And what they realized is that their diameter was 3.14 times around that circular object. So
You have to do multiple objects or?
Of course.
Okay.
You got to test, you got to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So them doing the math to create the equation makes it so that I'm not telling them what it is. It's not because I said so. It's because you figured it out.
Okay.
So in order for them to be engaged with math, we got to have that foundational understanding of certain levels of numbers, whatever the topic or standard might be, right? So if you're covering fractions, you need to make sure that we understand what 1/2 is and what 1/3 is and how to create those. If they don't understand those, we do the review. Once they do understand those, we give them the tools that they need and the problem in front of them and ask them the question, can you figure it out? That constructivist type of approach, little Piaget, of let me give you all your tools. Let me give you some instructions. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do. I'm going to tell you kind of how to get started. And I'm also going to tell you and show you what your goal is. Report back. Let me know what you find out. Let me know if you have any questions. Ask your friend first. Ask 3 friends first.
Ask 3 before you ask me.
And then ask me. And giving math foundationally that way to where they're discovering those equations and why those equations are written the way that they're written. That's what we're looking for.
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a little agency. It's inquiry based.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
Not just sit and get.
100%. My kids that were able to, my super high energy kids, I had become my measurers. Okay, you guys are have my string, have my rollers. I need you to measure every circular object. I need the diameter and I need the circumference. Explain to me about this pi thing. Where am I getting this? What does this mean? Go to every single circular thing that you can find. Get me those numbers. The measurement around that circle, that diameter. Let's figure out how they're connected.
So they're up and they're moving.
Every time. They got a job.
Okay. It's a lot different than I remember math class.
I never did that in math class because I said so.
Because it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just the sitting. Just sitting for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies, regardless of age, they don't want to do that.
No.
So why at a certain age we start requiring it? At kindergarten, ask a kindergarten teacher, do you have your kids sit in straight rows for the whole day and face forward? And like, they would look at you like you had something wrong with your brain.
Absolutely. It's like herding cats.
Yeah. You can't do it with a 5-year-old, with a 6-year-old. But why, as soon as there's any way to force compliance with that behavior, why all of a sudden are we doing that? Because it doesn't seem to increase learning.
I know. Just makes it, fat air quotes here, easier for us. If we're able to get our kids to sit still and not talk, then we can talk.
Yeah.
Does it work? No.
I'm not that convinced we should be talking that much.
No. God, no. God, no. The kids need to be talking.
Yeah, hopefully.
Majority of the time. We should be the question askers.
Those are all things that you could, we could talk about forever.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like your first year doing 7th?
Yep.
It's the end of the year.
We got 3 days left.
We've got like a fake week ahead of us. We've got a Memorial Day holiday, and then you've got 4 days after that. I got 5, 3 of which are fake. It's the end of 8th grade. So promotion ceremony, promotion rehearsals, all of that. And with a school as big as ours is, we have 2 days of promotion rehearsals. Oof. So yeah, I'm going to be in the class 1 day next week that counts.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love working the promotion ceremony. It's super cool.
They're fun
to have kids. I have 8th graders that get to promote, and you met them, and they were these other kind. They're an awkward
little dingleberries
tween now. Yeah, they were a different kind of dingleberry before.
Mm-hmm.
They, just watching a kid grow up is super neat.
especially over this like weird transitional time. Like they come in, they're a little bit goofy, a little bit more awkward, a little bit more immature, and they're not quite a high schooler, but they're a lot closer to it.
Oh, yeah.
Confidence, maturity, adult behavior,
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially when you've set an expectation and now they're closer to it.
Yeah.
That's super cool. And then of course they all get dressed up. You're like, oh my God, you look so handsome. You look so
My
beautiful.
babies.
Like, look at you all dressed up. Like, you look great.
Mm-hmm.
You look charming.
Sharp.
Sharp.
So sharp.
So sharp. Yeah. Yep. It's a cool experience. Might be cooler for me than, I mean, definitely for some other parents.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them, I don't know why they come. Like they're on their phone the whole time.
Yeah.
And like a kid's giving a speech and everybody's just like talking. It's loud. We're in a gymnasium. It sounds like a basketball game, even though it's supposed to be a child who wrote a speech.
Yeah.
Like, man, come on, adults. Get it together.
I wonder what their teachers said about them on their report cards.
Let's go refill and then talk about report cards.
Oh, let us. Report cards suck. Strawberry hibiscus. +5. +5 for my kids. My kids would know. +5.
+5. Tell me about +5. What's that?
It's an arbitrary system. It's like kudos. When we think of like, oh, you get kudos for that. That was cool. That was cool that you did that. I do a +5, -5 type of thing. We started in the beginning of the year with these note cards. Similar 3x5 note card where we have half of the note card with a +5 on the top, half the note card with a -5. You do good things, +5s. We do not so good things, -5s. I don't give out very many -5s unless they're incredibly warranted. It's more of a, let me teach you how to operate and work in my room with a lot of +5s. Mm-hmm. And -5s are all of our understandings of this is a boundary of we don't do this.
Okay. So behavioral conditioning.
100%. This is my clip chart without it being anything that is displayed for other kids to see, is sometimes shameful, depending on, where the kid's at. It's all self-reporting. They mark their own note cards. They turn them in. They pick them up. They are responsible. I just look at them at the end of the week. And it only happens for usually the first month or two.
Okay.
We use those points that they earn as, privileges for, things that we can do on Friday, different, games or activities. I'll bring my Switch. We can play some Mario Kart. I'll whoop on you. Whatever, if you want to spend your points for that, sure. But once we get that within the first couple of months and we have that understanding of how to operate within my classroom and how not to operate, that's usually the only behavior chart type thing that I ever need to use in class.
So it sounds like you spend a couple months with this kind of abstract but an extrinsic motivator.
Yes.
This points-based extrinsic motivation system, a currency of approval
Exactly.
of your behavior. But it only takes a couple months for them to internalize that feedback and know this is acceptable, this is not.
Yes.
I imagine in the like plurality of cases, but with exception occasionally.
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
That's cool. Those systems are great. Like if you can get a kid to go from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic, like all of a sudden, like I care if Miss Morgan
is mad at me.
Is pleased with my behavior or not.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to talk about grading. Yeah.
Talk to me.
Well, you talked to me. When we first talked about doing this, you talked about some of the stuff you're doing with grading, at least summative assessments.
Yes.
And I just wanted to hear about what you're doing with math test corrections and how that's affecting engagement and learning and metacognition. But then I learned talking to you just today that like your school district has has set up some stipulations for teachers for how they assemble the student's reported grade, their transcript grade.
Yes.
So what's that look like?
So for our grade book, we are required to have our grades be 80% representative of tests or assessments. So 80% of their grade is whatever test that they got, whatever score that they got on that test. And so in order for my kids to not shit their pants, for lack of a better phrase,
It's a great phrase.
we do something called test corrections. And this is the first time that I had ever used test corrections in regards to providing this as an opportunity to show your learning, because this is the first time that I was ever put into kind of that requirement of having my assessments be worth that much in my grade book. I never really given too much thought to my grade book in that regard of what should be weighed, at what percentage, and should my assessments be more? Should my, classwork be more? Where is their effort more? I would give, little bits of thought and try to make it, as equally distributed as it could. But when I moved to this new school that I'm working at currently, and they had this set up for me, this standard of assessments being both, their threshold of success as well as my threshold of success, I was like, okay, well, let's both not fail. How are we collectively not going to fail? How are we going to show that I'm teaching and you're learning? It's not going to happen first round. Rarely happens first round. If it does, awesome possum. If it doesn't, okay, you're normal. No worries. We get some repetition. So I figured out that test corrections was really an opportunity for my kids to see what they got wrong, as well as show me, from this, what did I learn? So I'll administer a test, and they take their test, they turn it into me immediately. The very next day, I don't look at their test, mind you. As soon as they turn it into me, I binder clip it, paper clip it, whatever need be, and I save it for the next day. Next day I go in, and what I do is I have them all make sure that their desks are completely cleared, no pencils, no nothing. I go out and I pass out blue pens or whatever color markers, whatever they want. If they want to use red, if they want to use whatever color, I don't care. As long as it's something that's not a pencil or any of the other items that they had used to do their test in, I will grade that with them. So I'll walk around, I have the answer sheet in my hand, and I go, okay, get your marker out, get your red pen, correct your test. Here we go. Number 1, it's 35. If you didn't get 35, go ahead and circle the correct answer. Make sure that you circle 35. Circle that you got number 1 wrong. You'll be doing that later, no problem. Number 2, this is the correct answer. So I go over those correct answers so that they see, okay, well, this is what I was supposed to get to. How do I get there? And with that zone of proximal development, my high-performing kids are able to figure out their mistakes because they have enough information. By me giving them the solution, they have enough foundational understanding to be able to get to that solution that I was hoping for.
Okay.
My middle-of-the-road kids, some of them can. Some of them need a little bit more help. They ask me some questions. I give them that feedback. And for my lower-performing kids, we do our test corrections together. So I'll pull a small group back. And I'll go, hey, I need so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. Because as soon as they we'll go through the correct answers, they'll give themselves a score at the top of their paper, and they turn those in immediately. You're not even correcting anything right now. Let me just see what your score was. If I corrected your paper, this is what your score would have been, right? But they're the ones that are correcting their own papers. They are seeing like, oh, okay, this is the right answer. Oh, okay, maybe that's where that mistake was made. As we're going through, that correction phase, I'll go ahead and I'll record their original score, whatever they graded it as, and I immediately give them back to them by the end of the period so that they can see, okay, this was my score of my understanding baseline from Miss Morgan's teaching, from any of the notes that I took from my study guide. This is what I got. After that, we have a period as well as tutoring sessions after school that are for those specific problems, covering that exact test. I'm not going to give them a retake, not because I don't think that they can learn that material and adapt it, but because I want them to correct their mistakes and not feel discouraged with the mistakes that they already made. I want them to correct those mistakes so that they can see that they learn, so that they can see, oh, it's okay to make a mistake because I have the opportunity to learn from that mistake and my grade can go higher. You do your test corrections for me. I don't care if you got a D. You get a 90%. You do all your test corrections. You get everything correct. You'll get a 90% from that assessment. I'll give you that A. 100% A? No. You didn't understand it completely fully the first time. But will I give you an A for your understanding because you got it now? Absolutely.
So with their math, like a lot of it builds. Like you
Yes.
move from one standard, which is foundational, to another standard that can only come after that first one.
Absolutely.
Like you have to, walk before you can run, kind of thing. So are you noticing doing these test corrections that the kids are actually improving their understanding of these skills when you move on to the next thing?
Yes.
So that kid that got a D, by doing the correction, it seems like they're learning it and they can now do that skill.
Yes, absolutely.
Are there instances where you do explicitly retest them on that skill, or are you waiting for it to come in that next skill that comes along? When are you hoping to see it?
In regards to explicitly testing it, it usually, I haven't had the time. So this being my first year of teaching 7th grade, I know that I need to have, for a couple of my units, I need to have some time that I set aside for that explicit reteach based on certain units from what I've learned from this year. I didn't take those explicit reteaches other than like our tutoring sessions that we would have every Monday. Those would be the times that I would do that. But in regards to a whole class reteach, I haven't done that yet for this particular age group. But I'm finding that for concepts like certain geometric concepts, certain algebraic concepts, that I will want to go through some sort of a reteaching, either a project or a lesson or a series of activities to make sure that they are going to be successful when they go into 8th grade. So they have enough of a foundational base, at least with me, to be able to accomplish what they need to in 8th grade.
That's all. I mean, it sounds like you have targeted intervention time built in right now that you're able to, within your class period, do small group pull out.
Yep.
Outside of that, do targeted intervention tutoring periods. Like that's great. When you went to the school district and they told you, or like, how did you find out, like, oh, my grade book has to be 80% assessments? How did you, like, was it part of the onboarding process? They told you that?
Yes.
Wow.
So first couple weeks, you do your professional development depending on how your school is all set up. Our school does professional development every Wednesday, and then we have 2 weeks before we actually start with our students that we are showing up and we are, getting different bits of curriculum, and we are learning how certain processes and procedures work, and we, et cetera, and setting up our grade books and whatnot. So in that first couple weeks, they explained to us that this is how our grade book is set up. But there wasn't an explicit reason why. It was more of a because I said so kind of factor, which, I respected. I got your name at the bottom of my check, no problem. But still, I'm going to try and make this work the best for my kids as possible. It doesn't matter who's sending my checks. I'm going to make sure that my kids feel confident and successful with what we're required to do.
Yeah. Is this... Well, if you're doing 7th grade, the year before in 6th grade, are they getting like standards-based report cards, or are they getting 3s, 2s, and 1s on?
Standards-based. They should be getting standards-based record. They might have electives where they have their 3, 2, 1s.
Okay.
But in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is where they should have those standard-based grades. And even in 5th grade, to be honest with you, I've seen standard-based grades.
Okay.
It might just depend on the district and
Right.
whatnot.
Right. Well, I know, like in my district, through the elementary grades, and I'm not, like, at a certain point it cuts off, but in the lower grades, they're not getting A's, B's, C's, and D's. They're getting, on a report card, the report card isn't one grade. It's multiple learning targets, multiple standards.
Got it.
That they're supposed to, get good at, and they get a 3, a 2, or a 1 on them. And so they're kind of accustomed to what that system looks like. But then in middle school, all of a sudden they're getting A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. And in 7th, and then they've never seen that before.
Yeah.
They don't know what that means.
Failure? What?
They're like, what? What does that mean? And all of a sudden they're assigned a label and a score and a rating and an order, and it becomes unhealthily competitive, and depending on influences at home and stuff, it can be kind of weird.
It's detrimental at times.
Yeah, I mean, God, to watch a 14-year-old have a breakdown, crying, panic attack over the difference between an A and a B, like, F that. That's, if you're doing that to your kid, you're not preparing them for anything.
No. Other than to be fearful of their adults or the people that are, leading them.
And to grow up to an adult that never feels adequate, that, is too stricken by fear and panic to really achieve at anything, to take risks, definitely.
Yeah, confidence is not something that's fostered in that environment.
And you can't learn without failure.
No.
You got to do dangerous things carefully.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take risks. You have to not be afraid to fail. Like,
supported failure is the best type of failure.
Fail, examine, learn, repeat.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be that parent. Please don't be that parent. Mm-hmm. If your kid gets a B.
A B is a great grade.
B is a great grade.
In my class, a B means you met 100% of our 8th grade standards. That's a B. A B is perfect. To get an A, like, that's exceeding standard, because there has to be room for you to be
better,
to go beyond what we're learning. Because quite frankly, my class is boring as hell for some people. Like, there are some kids that love science, and they go home and they Google stuff and they watch YouTube videos and Nat Geo, and they've read Neil deGrasse Tyson books, and they're like, I love space stuff. Mm-hmm. And we get to talking about Earth and space stuff, and they're like, yeah, I learned this 3 years ago. What else do you got?
Yep.
You're like,
I'll get back to you.
Sit still and shut up.
Mm-hmm. I'll see you on Monday. Hold on.
Yeah, that doesn't work with those kids. So they have to have an opportunity to go beyond. Mm-hmm. But none of this, like, if a kid can get 119% in your class, then your grades don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like, what does your grade measure? Does your grade measure anything? Like, how much you like that kid?
Exactly.
How much extra time they have at home?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have
or help.
Or help. Like, oh, they got extra credit because they did this, like, cool extra project. Okay, if they didn't have a mom that could take them to Michael's, could they have done that extra project? Mm-hmm. If they couldn't have gone to the craft store.
Or a dad that was an engineer.
Right. Exactly.
Like, okay,
yes,
cool.
Totally. Like, oh, that kid has 109%, and their father's a professor of mathematics at the local university.
Got it.
Interesting coincidence.
Noted.
Yeah. You just got to know what your grade means. I love that, even though it is a district mandate, that if your kid's grades 80% assessments,
yep,
then the grade very heavily is going to be correlated with how well that kid is meeting those math goals.
100%.
Like, how well they can do those math skills. Mm-hmm. Like, a kid that has an A is going to be reliably better at those 7th grade math skills than a kid with a C.
Yes.
That's good. I mean, that means the grade measures something other than their compliance, other than their behavior, other than their home culture, the level of support, their quote unquote effort. Mm-hmm. Effort doesn't look the same in every kid.
No, it sure doesn't. Your overtime is not the same as my overtime.
Correct. Mm-hmm. That is correct. Man, I got a kid right now. She learns everything we have to learn in my class, and it takes her at least twice as long as the average student. And while her brain is doing what her brain does, it very frequently looks like she is in La La Land.
Got it.
It looks like she's doing nothing. She's distracted, and maybe she is. Mm-hmm. Or maybe she's taking extra processing time. Mm-hmm. Or maybe she's just trying to deal with whatever the heck's going on at home so she can get back to the point that her brain can now do science again for a few minutes.
Yeah, be at a safe space, safe level, of being able to think about other than surviving.
But she works so hard because she'll ask, like, Mr. Schulke, is it okay if I take this home to finish it? Oh, of course it is.
Yeah,
like,
please.
What can I Do you need any help with it? Do you have enough? Do you want to take a picture of my science notebook? Do you want to take a picture of that slide we had up on the board? Like, get your phone out, take a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you
Send me
need?
an email.
Yeah. Do you need to borrow this book? You need to take it home? Like, whatever you need. And she will do 100% of the work. And I know it takes her. She's going home and spending 3 hours trying to get it right.
That beautiful baby. So successful she's going to be.
But her quote unquote effort, it doesn't look like effort for other kids.
Oh, yeah.
If you just saw her in class, you go, oh, man, this kid's daydreaming and spacing out and whatever other,
She doesn't care.
She doesn't care.
She's not paying attention to me.
She's not engaged. Yeah. Oh, my God. She's working so hard, though.
Proud of her.
It was a little rough for a bit. Because she was consuming THC during the school day.
Oh, baby girl.
Yeah, and then we had to have she got caught.
Oh, baby girl.
She got caught and missed a day of school
Okay.
because of disciplinary consequences.
It happens.
It happens, and then we had a talk afterward, and she was totally honest with me.
Cool.
100% honest, and I was like, hey, so you know how I've already told you, like, how impressed I am by how hard you work, and that I know that it takes you longer to figure stuff out than everybody else. She's like, yeah, I know. It does.
Sure do.
She notices it too.
Okay.
And I was like, but I've told you, like, you work hard and you achieve as much as anybody else in here. Like, you guys are equal because you work as hard as you do.
Yep.
And she's like, yeah. And I said, how much harder is it when you're in class high?
Period.
Period.
The real questions.
Right. And she's like, honestly, it's a lot harder.
I gotta bring myself back every 30 seconds, and I don't know if it's 30 seconds or 30 hours.
Right. Or is it tomorrow? Or am I on another planet?
Hi,
Is your class on Neptune now?
Hi, my name is.
Right. So I was like, well, Mija, like, as your teacher, what do you think that I want for you? Do you think I want learning to be even harder, or do you think I want it to be as easy as it can be? And she's like, not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, baby.
So I'm not gonna, like, don't promise me anything. Don't tell me any promises you can't keep. Don't tell me anything that you don't even want to do.
Yep.
But now we know that conversation's, it's out there, right?
Yes.
Like, you know, and I know. Like, what you do outside of school, I'm never gonna know that.
Oh, yeah. Please don't tell me.
Please
dear
don't
God.
tell me.
Put that in your journal.
And
Maybe
don't
never.
put it on social media because an adult is going to see it, dummy.
Nothing in writing. Nothing in writing. Goodbye.
And the internet is forever. Period.
Period. With a T at the end.
Period.
Period.
So we have this talk, and she tells me, like, no, I really, like, I'm not gonna. I'm like, dude, don't promise me anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're a teenager. Your intention about anything can be very fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
So just know that I care about you, and I don't want class to be rough, and I don't want you to be too high to do science and then have 4 hours of homework.
I love that you made her not promise you.
Because
It's phenomenal.
none of your
There's a lot of pressure that they're going to put on themselves that they can't, but don't necessarily know how to meet.
Do all 14-year-olds keep all their promises?
Whew.
Do they maybe want to in the moment?
Sure.
Sure. But then all of a sudden you're impulsive and your reptilian brain is doing its thing, but your prefrontal cortex is not formed yet. It's barely doing anything electrically.
Oh, yeah.
And so your impulse control doesn't exist.
Misfiring constantly.
And your phone buzzes and you check it and like, hey, meet me in the bathroom to go vape.
Sure.
And you're like, that sounds like exactly what I should be doing right now.
Yes.
Let's go. Can I use a bathroom?
I'll be back in 10. Bye.
10-ish. Yeah. And then here comes my glassy-eyed student, like, oh, Mija, like, this is gonna.
God damn it. Sit up front. Sit up front.
And that's the way it is. It really, like, nobody wants to talk about it.
No. It's so much more prominent than we would even.
Dude, drug use among our age kids,
Incredible.
it's about triple what it was before the blip.
Really?
Yeah. I got to pull. I just heard the stats from this study today.
Oh my
I gotta read the whole, like, whatever survey technique they were using and where they got the data. But it looks like 2 to 3 times, 2 to 3 times as many young teens are using cannabis products daily.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Like 7 days a week.
Lord.
Yeah. It's significant. Like, I think it was like 3% before, and now it's like 8%
Jeez.
of the middles of our kiddos.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta look into that. Check the show notes for a link to whatever the hell study that was.
Whoever our person was, Jamie, go ahead and report back on that.
Right. Our producer.
Was it Jamie?
There's nobody over there. We don't have a Jamie. There's just, I guess that's me. I guess I'll figure that out.
Okay.
Off air.
Well,
We'll jujule it.
It'll be in the notes, maybe.
We'll duck go that.
I'm not going to put any pressure.
We'll Brave browser that.
Sure. Yeah, DuckDuckGo. Period.
This podcast brought to you by
Tajin.
Delicious chemicals and spices on your beverages.
Con sal.
Yummy. Yeah, man. Being able to have real conversations with kids. Do you ever feel, you're doing 7th grade right now, you've done high school sophomores before, so you've probably had to have an uncomfortable conversation or two.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna implore you right now to check your female privilege.
Yes.
Because you know that your male colleagues are terrified
100%.
about having, with any student, regardless of their gender / identity, having a conversation that makes a kid feel uncomfortable. Because guess what? Sometimes you can mean nothing by it, and just men are creepy sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have the best of intentions and what you say sounds and or feels creepy, or that kid has trauma that makes anything you say be creepy.
Yep.
And teachers know this, and they're afraid. They're rightfully afraid.
100%.
And
repercussions are real in that regard, especially with male educators.
Totally. Yes, the repercussions are real. But I think that the good male teachers try really hard to find that boundary, to find that line, and know, like, man, this kid needs somebody to be honest with them. Mm-hmm. Maybe they need to talk about some awkward, terrible teenage crap they're going through. They need an adult they can trust. They definitely don't have one at home. Am I that guy? What does this conversation look like? What are the right and wrong things to say?
Yes. How
do I help them without... You're parenting someone else's kid.
Oh, every single year I am a mom.
Yeah.
Like,
except that somebody's mom or somebody's dad, if they give them the birds and the bees talk, they don't have to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Mm-hmm. For giving the birds and the bees talk.
Even if they're inaccurate.
Right.
Which is incredible.
As the biological or legal guardian of this person, you can tell them whatever you want.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's really precarious. But all the teachers, like, man, they see all these kids and they're like, I want these kids to be okay.
Yeah.
I want them to be safe. I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to know they're loved. I want to know them they like deserve love. Mm-hmm. I want them to know all these things. Because they're going to start experimenting with what relationships are. Oof. And that is the most dangerous thing you can do.
It is. Oof. We did a whole 2.5 hours of that in our teen talk, talking about relationships. It was a doozy.
You just did the sexual and reproductive education.
I sure did.
Golly gosh.
Woo! A big sheesh for those about 4 or 5 years ago. Any of those that were sheeshers. Sheesh.
Sheesh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is a sheesh.
That's a big old sheesh. That's a big old sheesh.
It was awesome, though.
I bet.
Yeah.
It can be. Sure can be.
Yes. It's incredible. They're curious about this. They want to know.
Do you think it strengthened your connection with them?
100%. 100%. Tenfold. Being able to talk about your sexual reproductive organs as well as relationships. What is unhealthy? What is healthy? what is biologically going on in your body, what is normal, what is not normal. And for that to be math, science, ELA, and history all combined, that is the most cross-curricular. It's the most relevant in regards to what do they want to learn? They want to learn how their stuff works. They want to learn why it works. They want to learn how to not get pregnant or not get an STI.
Yeah.
So curriculum that we had was really, really awesome with introducing that and covering those topics. But
so your district bought some teaching materials, a quote unquote curriculum, a set of materials to standardize what any teacher would teach to these kids.
Yes.
To take any biases or personal whatever beliefs and stuff out of it. And it's just the facts, ma'am.
Yep.
So they got that for you, but then they let the classroom teacher that knows the kids do it.
Yes. And we had boys and girls in the same class.
Mm-hmm.
It was not separated. Whereas my sex ed was separated. I was just in a group of girls with a female teacher learning about us.
And that was your middle school sex ed experience?
Middle school. I was in 8th grade. And my middle school sex ed experience was don't have sex. Good luck. Don't have sex. STIs suck. These are what STIs look like. Don't have sex. You'll die. That was for Mean Girls.
I got a few different flavors of it. I don't remember what all of them looked like. Middle school's a blur.
Yeah.
It really is.
Middle school's my headgear, so that's pretty much the most prominent memory I have.
I have some memories. None of them are great, though. Which tells me that our brains, they do some stuff when we're going through stuff. It's good to keep in mind.
They trap the learning experiences, whether comfortable or uncomfortable.
Man.
A lot of them are uncomfortable during this time.
Yeah. Middle school in general.
It's hard.
Yeah. The whole thing just feels overwhelming. You have the emotional intensity of an adult with the emotional tools of a child.
Yep.
And just everything is as emotionally impactful as it ever will be in your entire life. Everything feels like the sky is falling, the world is ending.
And it's in different gear. Some are in 1st, some are in 5th.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're all at different places.
Differentiate that instruction, huh?
Yeah. We don't. I mean, wouldn't that even be more appropriate to like figure like, because even in 7th grade, you've probably got kids that are in 3 distinct different phases of puberty.
Yep.
Very pubescent, little bit of like peripubescent, and definitely not yet pubescent.
Absolutely not.
So you've got kids that are still biologically little kids, kids that are, they're pubescent. And then you've got men and women, young men and young women.
Yes.
Yeah. That's different.
It's incredible.
But they're all in the same class at the same time with the little boys and little girls all together, and you're talking about all the things.
Yeah, that 9 months is a doozy. It is quite the time frame. Like I said, we become teenagers. Turning from 12 to 13 for some reason is some sort of magical transformation of like, oh, I'm next level. I'm at this threshold now. So my kids that are 13, they're feeling good. They're feeling like they should be listened to. I'm like, all right.
That's so accurate.
Right?
Like they should be listened to. Like they want to debate you. Like, no, let me tell you, someone's great though. I just had a great conversation with one of my students. It's the last week where our school has these like incentives. Our mascot, I don't want to single out my school, so let's imagine that our school was the platypus.
Okay.
That was our mascot, and we have platypus bucks.
Got it.
It was the last week we could use platypus bucks at the student store or for these raffles or whatever. And
after the morning announcements, one of the kids wanted to talk about it. And I was like, great, let's talk about it. What do you like? What do you like? What do you not like about him? And this kid, he's like, Mr. Schulke, like, that economy, it's not really based on anything. So it's not a secure, like, if it was on the gold standard and these things actually had intrinsic value, then there would be a lot more to it. But look, the student stores only open 1 day a week, and they don't even have things that people want. Like, there's no demand in that economy. So thereby, like, this currency doesn't have any value because you can't use it to buy things that have value. So if they had things that had higher value to teenagers in the student store and they were more readily available, and the raffles had a higher probability of you winning, then that economy would have a lot more value. But this currency, it's not worth anything. So you can have 50 platypus bucks and it doesn't get you anything you want. So it's a worthless currency.
Incredible.
And I was like, you are the new secretary of the economy, or whatever that is. Of the Treasury?
Treasury.
The Treasury?
Yes,
Thank you. I
have now
don't teach
just got
social
your
studies.
Business major degree.
I'm
Thank you very much.
Currently signing your recommendation letter for grad school, though you are 14. Like, this child said this, and I'm
Incredible.
Like, oh my God, I don't know what podcast you're listening to, but
Keep listening, bud.
yeah,
Turn it up.
You're either going to solve the world's problems or build bombs in a cabin in the woods. One of the two.
Either way, you're going to be making a difference.
Making an impact. Those moments are great where you're like, oh, you do have an opinion, you do have something to say, and man, if we would shut up and listen to you, you could probably realize that the more you exercise your brain, the more impact you can have.
100%.
Like, you know what, can I bring you to one of our behavioral management committee meetings and have you talk to the other adults about this? Because they don't listen to me. They just think I'm a grumpy Gus because they're right.
Yeah.
You know, they think I'm outspoken in a way that's not that fun to listen to. And they're right in a lot of cases. So, like, man, why don't I just, hey, this is my student so-and-so. Maybe listen to what he has to say. I'll just be in the corner.
Like I mentioned earlier, that the project, that Genius Hour, that's exactly what that is. It's giving them the opportunity to, what'd you learn? Why does it work?
Yeah.
How'd you figure that out? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Why should other people care? It's necessary.
The best. So, you want to talk about distance learning?
Yeah.
Quotes around it?
Sure.
Distance quote unquote learning?
Yeah, I did a whole year on 5th grade.
You were on grade 5 when
Grade 5.
that happened.
Full year online. We started day 1. We took a little screeny of all of our little profile pics.
Little
Screenery. And then we did a screeny at the end of the year, last day of school. Good luck in 6th grade.
Was there the same number of people in those 2 photographs?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. Good for you.
Yes. I was able to have all of my students logged on every day, did multiple strategies to try and get them both logged on and engaged. And that was whoever did COVID teaching, bless you, plus 100, and you deserve everything in a raise.
Yes, you are now officially, you've achieved sainthood. You will be knighted by someone. We don't have that in the States, but should we just start knighting people?
I feel like we'll be on, not next Friday because we're still going to be in school, but the Friday after. Just go ahead and shoot us an email. We'll meet you somewhere.
We'll meet you somewhere. I will acquire a sword. I will derive the authority.
Master teacher.
Yes. And rise, sir. Something. Yeah, we don't have anything like that here in the States. It's like you can get a pardon. You can murder somebody and get away with it.
Oh, pardons. Yes.
Preemptively pardon?
We can get some pardons, but anything further than that? Nah. Nah.
She just said, nah. Nah, son. Nah.
No special privileges. Just kidding. Yeah, there are. There are here.
Could talk all day about teaching sex ed to kids.
Oh, man.
That is so important, so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And there is stuff that deserves to be in that learning bout, in that segment of teaching, that didn't have to be in it when you and I went through it, because there are things that are now we have internet.
Wow. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
When I was in middle school, it was like that was the internet.
Exactly. Dial up.
Yeah, you had dial up only if your parents worked with computers in their work, then you had one in your home, maybe.
Maybe.
And you maybe had dial up internet, and you would, even if you already had America Online, you would get a CD in the mail every 3 days. So you had coasters, had a lot of coasters, America Online coasters.
Incredible.
And yeah, I remember the dial-up internet. But now it's in their pocket, buzzing all day long.
Always.
All of the things. And they're getting information, and it's not necessarily reliable information. So now there's a lot more to talk about. And they have ability to send different types of information to one another, which can be precarious.
Did you hear the earth is flat? It's not.
I have heard that.
God.
And I like teaching that. I like that.
Okay.
Because one of our science and engineering practices is engaging in argument from evidence.
Cool.
And okay, I know this is funny to you, but go ahead. Let's engage in debate.
Sure.
Based on evidence. We can do experiments within the bounds of the walls of this classroom to show you that it's not. So let's argue based on evidence.
Let's talk about it.
And let's have fun with it. Everybody's gonna laugh. It's gonna be goofy. You're doing it because it's goofy. You know it's not flat. Except there's two crazy people and one rapper that think it's flat.
Sure.
And guess what? They're on TikTok, so you know what.
They're saying it loud enough.
Yes. So the same thing happens not just with the flat earth, but with all kinds of things about their bodies and relationships and sexuality and all that stuff. And there's way more. I did not have to deal with all that information when I was in grade 8, grade 7.
I don't remember this either. I don't remember that either.
No, it was just kind of like, oh, my body's doing stuff that I don't understand.
Cool.
And my brain is downright creepy. So, okay.
It's a cesspool over here.
Let's figure what this is all about. Yep.
The daily routine.
Yeah. And every day's different. Let's keep the body guessing. But now, before they even hit puberty, they're just I don't even want to know. Are they just seeing all the porn in the universe before they even are hitting puberty?
There's a lot of kids that have not only that access, but have the freedom to be able to access that material. And there are also some kids that just overhear conversations from their older siblings and
Golly, that's terrifying.
from their parents that are way more honest than need be at that age.
So a little bit of honesty seems like it's probably healthy.
Sure.
Especially when they're in that peripubescent, that around puberty age. To not lie.
Yeah.
To not shelter.
They want to know it.
They want it. Well, yeah.
They want to know.
By the time they're experiencing puberty-ish feelings, they're going to know if you're full of shit.
They'll smell it.
Stop lying to your children. Because they're going to hear it at school.
Yep.
And God forbid, the only place to get information is other 12-year-olds and the internet.
Yeah, please be better if you're a parent in that regard, please.
Yeah, be smarter than a 12-year-old on the internet.
Look it up.
Be better than TikTok.
Ask their teacher if you don't know.
Yeah, somebody. So
That's terrifying because we know what that kind of information does to the brains of adults, but it'll be another 10 years before we even have any research onto what it's really doing.
God, I can't imagine.
To these kids. Like, how many kids are just never going to have a functional relationship because thanks, internet.
Mm-hmm. It's, yeah, I'm curious about that. Or their relationships are going to be somewhat superficial for the temporary time period until they're really like, ooh, that doesn't feel right. It's not right. This is how it shouldn't be.
That's a terrible learning curve to go through.
You know?
But it's believable because, we know like what the social media platforms are doing to like girls' self-esteem.
Oh, yeah.
Because they see all the superficial, fake, terrible stuff that makes them feel that there's no way a human being with a human body can be acceptable.
Oh, you don't look like Barbie?
Right.
Not you?
You don't have...
Me either.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Those shapes and figures and things that don't really appear natural. But they all think that's the goal. And that...
The expectation, the baseline, almost.
Yeah. And the way to affirmation and attention and approval and acceptance. And it's so unhealthy for any kid, for a girl or a boy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way. It's scary.
Stressful. There's enough going on.
Oh my God, middle school's terrible.
To say the least. It is a tough one to figure out, and I don't know if anybody's ever figured it out.
Did you have a middle school teacher that you can remember?
Yeah. I had my history teacher and my science teacher in my 7th grade. Mr. Merrill and Mr. McGrath. If you know who I'm talking to, shout out to you.
So you remember Mr. Merrill and Mr. McGrath. History and science in middle school.
Yep.
So what do you remember about them?
I remember that they were the first teachers that I felt like I could connect with them, as humans, that they saw me as a human being versus as a student. They would joke with me a little bit more. By no means were they less professional, but I felt that they were less uptight, if that's a word I could use in that regard. I felt like I could talk to both of those male teachers. I'm obviously female, but identifying as female. They were two teachers that I felt like, regardless if it was social studies or science, if it was something math or ELA, I would still ask them just to get their perspective, because the way that they communicated to me, received information as well as delivered information was safe. It wasn't anything that I felt attacked. It was always presented in a way that was as is, nothing in regards to assumptions of like, you should know this or you shouldn't know this or whatever. It was, this is. And the examples that they would use were connecting to me, connecting to things that I did on and off campus. And they were also the first male teachers that I had. Which was, I think, really, really impactful.
That's interesting. So you went through all the primary grades with female teachers, which is statistically not unlikely.
Yeah.
Like primary grades teachers are almost all female.
Yep.
And it's that's just a statistical truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to middle school and all of a sudden you have 2 single subject teachers who are both men. While you're a tween.
Yes. Figuring it out.
So.
Starting my period and everything, ladies, with these 2 new guys. I was dumbfounded.
And these guys were probably young adult men at the time.
Yeah, I would say they're probably in their 30s.
Okay.
Young 30s, early 30s. Yeah.
Okay.
Early 30s.
So that's young as a man goes.
100%.
They're not salt and pepper hair,
Mm-mm.
older, they don't have adult kids.
Nope.
That's really interesting that you would bond with as a, so hard as I may try, I've never been a teenage girl in my whole life.
Well, sometimes I would not recommend,
Okay.
to be honest.
All right. Well, maybe I don't need to know exactly what that feels like. But being a teenage girl, it's gotta be awkward.
Yes.
It's gotta be uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's probably embarrassing nonstop.
It is painful.
Physically painful.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Body's just throwing a temper tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And in that time, there's a male figure at the school of all places.
Yep.
With whom you feel comfortable, safe, valued, like a person.
Yeah.
You talk to him about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with school.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Tell me more about that.
These particular teachers talk to me and joke with me in ways that I felt comfortable sharing personal stories. I didn't feel judged. My female teachers, to be honest, I couldn't even tell you what my my homeroom teacher, actually my 7th grade year, I did not like her. She was a B, as some of my students would say. She's a B. Didn't put the effort into make things fun and jovial and give in a little bit. There's a certain level of give that you have as a middle school teacher, whether it's, watching their damn shows that they want you to watch or playing that game that everybody's playing or whatever it is.
Yep.
Shut up and try it.
Learn their stupid TikTok dance.
Just do it. Try it for 30 seconds. Try it for a day. Humor them. Explain your experience.
Yeah.
And genuinely, they'll be like, oh shit, they tried. Oh shit, they care. Like, this is my level of understanding. Let me help them. When they feel like they can give you some feedback, like, that is a peer. So we come from, if I'm trying to connect with these kids and using, whatever colloquial phrases or, at the time, sayings that are popular.
Mm-hmm.
If they can teach me a little bit about it, now we're a peer.
Yeah.
That equality makes it so that they don't feel as uncomfortable sharing information with me that I might not know or whatever that might be, and vice versa. It's like, oh, you don't understand what I mean by that fraction? Bro, let me help you. Don't sweat it. This is all it is. Isn't that cool? Cool. Yeah. Dope. Bye.
Do you think that it sets a tone for that relationship? Vulnerability is a good thing?
Vulnerability is necessary, at least in my class.
Seems to be common in teachers that have success making relationships with kids, that vulnerability, I mean, you don't want to be someone that does things the kids don't approve of all the
Mm-hmm.
time, but you also want to be obviously a fallible human being.
100%. A little Brene Brown.
And let them have something you don't have. Like, man, I don't understand. What does that mean? You guys say that? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Should I Google that? What is that? I hear people saying that. What does that mean?
An Urban Dictionary? Is that one of those? Okay, got it. Noted. No. Let me figure that out. Oh my God, that's what you're saying? That's what that means? Oh my God. Okay.
That's vulgar.
Yeah.
That is vulgar. I'm glad I know now.
That is lightweight and appropriate. I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're putting that in the books.
Learn a lot from the kids. Oh my God. A group of female students recently encouraged me to watch the Pitch Perfect films. Having never seen them before, like, oh my God, you've never seen the Pitch Perfect movies? You have to go watch those. And so
they're right.
What's
your feedback?
They were not incorrect. Always thought Anna Kendrick was adorable.
Absolutely.
But, also a fun actress, plays cool roles, can be sincere, can be a little awkward, is, you know, she's pretty, like, it's good.
Oh, for sure.
So
Excuse me? Period.
so like to see a film where she's playing, I mean, how would you describe her character? She's outside of the social group, trying to
Yes.
enter a social group, and she is different.
Yes.
I was like, oh.
I wouldn't say a black sheep, but almost.
In a way,
Self-proclaimed.
yeah, unapologetically different.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, you're a creep, you're a weirdo,
Mm-hmm.
you don't belong here.
You're different.
I understand that. Okay, completely understand that. Yeah, I can actually, there's something in this movie that I can, and guess what? I watched Pitch Perfect, and then I watched Pitch Perfect 2
Yes, you
on a
did.
weekend.
Yes, you did.
And it takes place in high school, so your brain's like, hey, remember when you were in high school and this thing happened that was really upsetting? Let's feel those emotions right now.
Let's sing a song about it.
Let's sing a song about it. Let's break into choreographed dance for no apparent reason.
And crush it.
And crush it. No, it was cool. And then the kids didn't think that I was gonna
Watch it.
watch it. And then I show up on Monday, and this one girl's like, so, did you watch it?
You were like,
And I was like, yeah, I did. Like, oh my God, are you serious? And they tried to test me like, well, what did you think about what happened with, so there's a character, Fat Amy.
Yes.
I would never call a girl Fat Amy.
no
There's
spoilers. Actually, spoiler alert. Suck it up.
spoilers. So like, what did you think about what happened to Fat Amy at the beginning of the second movie?
Mm-hmm.
And so I commented on that.
Yeah.
And it was cool. Like, all of a sudden they were like, oh, we can relate over something, we can bond over something.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we know you think our TikTok dances are weird, and some of the things we're into, like, we're goofy and whatever, but sometimes you play Taylor Swift and you watch Pitch Perfect, and so, like,
You're cool.
you're not actually that weird for a, you know, 40-year-old guy with a shaved head.
A teacher dude.
A teacher dude.
Yeah. Connections. Rapport.
Well, I never would have thought that, like, until I really thought about it, that a bunch of teenage girls would actually seek out rapport with male role models.
Mm-hmm. Everyone does.
And I'm admittedly just naive to whatever that is about their psychological development,
Okay.
where they're seeking out some kind of father figure, or figuring out what a I don't know, what is that?
Connection.
What do you mean? Say more about,
Understanding.
you're a woman, apparently, according to rumor.
Rumor has it. Connection. Being seen. Being understood. Being able to share an experience and have that either reciprocated or have that being listened to without judgment. That is powerful in middle school. Having that level of banter or conversation from those of the opposite sex of like, this is my reality, this is your reality. I'm not discouraging your reality. I'm validating your reality, as well as, you know, me validating your reality. And to be seen is one of the most powerful confidence building activities, behaviors that I have ever known. Mm-hmm. Is to see someone. That is, it's not teaching, it's not education, it's just being a human. But if you're able to see someone, they will do just about anything for you.
That feels very true.
Takes a lot of time. But you can do it within a year. You can do it within a semester of figuring out your kids to be able to get them to do.
To feel seen.
Yeah.
To notice that they are seen.
Mm-hmm.
Not just to feel it, but to know it, to believe it, to internalize it. 100% agree.
these are the things, man, I wish my teaching credential program like had a class just in these few things that we're talking about. Because it didn't. It was non-existent.
No.
None of it was there. It was the most important thing for me to learn, and it was not included. But man, did I write a whole bunch of lesson plans that were bullshit.
Oh, 100%.
Made a whole bunch of checked a whole bunch of boxes.
I'll give you some swabits. I'll give you some students who will be able to.
Right.
Sure.
But where did that come from, and what did it mean, and what was that actually going to look like, and how did it matter, and what did we have to do before that?
And will they know this in 5 years? Will they be able to do this in their job? And will they refer back to you as that teacher that gave them that information? Maybe.
You know, I hope to have a whole bunch of more friends come talk about their experiences in middle school and high school, because that seems to be more important, very important, very, very important.
Critical.
As we become adults and as we form secure relationships with adults outside of our home. I talked to a bunch of people we both know that remember middle school and high school, and they can tell you the name of like one or two teachers.
Yep.
And it never has any damn thing to do with their content.
Is that incredible?
It's never like, oh my gosh, I was so fascinated by the American Revolution, and Mrs. Brown gave these remarkable lectures about the American... No. Literally 0 times out of infinity.
Maybe never.
Never, absolutely never in the history of the universe has an adult said, you know, when I was a teenager, this person was a content matter expert, and I respected them for that.
I crushed the American Revolution segment of that test in my final semester because of Miss Swear.
Right. I mastered my exponent rules in maths class. Nope.
Not once.
Not once ever. It's always, man, this teacher connected with me in some way. They made me feel ...
You know the best compliment that I ever got as a teacher? So when I was teaching my sophomore English, I had a couple of obviously junior English teachers that once they had my kids from sophomores, obviously, to become juniors, the best compliment I ever got was, I could tell which kids were yours.
Doesn't that feel amazing?
Oh my Lanta.
Feels so amazing.
Never had I ever realized how impactful that phrase could be. I realized which kids were yours based on how they handled situations. Excuse me?
Squeeze me?
Excuse me? Yeah, that is one of the, if you're a teacher that connects with your students, you're doing a job that you're not paid for. You are doing a job that you will never be compensated for.
Not monetarily.
No, not monetarily.
But those little things that you get opportunities for. We just had our awards ceremony.
Nice.
Last night. And to hand a kid just some stupid certificate that, you know, one of the ladies that runs our office like printed out for you. It has their name on it and
15
says
hours earlier.
Achievement or something or perseverance or whatever. And you hand it to the kid and make eye contact with them and watch them almost lose their ish in front of everybody's parents and half of their friends, to watch them almost cry in front of 400 people. You're like, I got you.
Got it.
We did it. We effing did it.
Yep.
Because you know how much this means and I know how much this means, and we're going to make uncomfortable eye contact for half of a second, and then you're going to go sit the hell back down.
And you're going to be so fucking proud of yourself about it.
Yeah. And you're never going to tell me.
Nope.
Because that would...
Maybe in 5 years with a little handwritten note or a little text or a little email, but...
Maybe.
That's a maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Every once in a while get some emails from the high school kids, you know.
You know, it was really cool. I got to go observe a friend of mine who was my mentor. He's teaching bio at the high school,
Okay.
into which one of the high schools into which our middle school feeds. And I went there for first period, and like I show up before first period and find the classroom and I observe that class, and then passing period between periods 1 and 2, kids are coming in the classroom who were my students last year. And I'm asking them like, hey, do you have Mr. So-and-so right now for bio? Like, oh no, I just heard that you were here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So they're literally just like coming in the room to dab me up, give me a hug, say hello.
What
like,
up, Shulky?
Yeah, exactly.
It's good.
And I'm like, dude, is this? They're like, no, dude, like everybody knows you're here right now. Like, what?
It's so dope.
So dope.
Sorry, celebrity.
Like, even if we didn't learn any science, like you learn that there's an adult that thinks you can do really cool stuff and accepts you for being like, teenagers are weird and annoying.
Oh my God.
Guess what, teens? You are annoying a lot of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Hopefully none of you are listening. This is for an adult audience.
Just in case you are listening, you are absolutely annoying.
You're annoying. And also we love you and accept you exactly as you are.
Yes, pipe down back there though.
Right. Also.
Yep.
Yeah. They're so great. And the energy, like when you just learn to love that about them, like, look at how, like your goofiness, how much you want, like, oh, you want to wrestle, you want to play, you want to throw stuff. Like we need to do something that incorporates that into class. So you know that that's an acceptable behavior. It's an acceptable piece of you. It's just, you can only do it at the right time.
100%.
And we got to figure out what that right time looks like.
Know your audience, babies.
And
know your audience.
And it's not a never. It's just a not right now. Because look, like, know where you're at. And then, like, well, let's go somewhere where we can do that.
We get a brain break at 12. You can go outside for 5 to 7 minutes. Ball so hard.
Or we can incorporate it in what you like. You like to throw stuff? Cool. We're learning about forces in motion. Let's make paper airplanes.
Yes.
And go outside and throw them and have a contest. Or we're learning about data and statistics. Let's get a football from the PE teachers and let's go chuck it as far as you possibly can and learn about calculating means and medians and modes and actually graphically displaying data.
Do it. Do the math.
Let's do it. Let's, if that's what we need to do. And they will have the most fun time and the boys will tease each other and they will chuck the football as hard as they can and they will call each other pussies. And because that's what teenage boys do.
Yes.
And that's healthy and it's okay.
That's within the boundaries. Let's go ahead and make that clear. That's within the boundaries.
Within the boundaries. Like, tease each other. Like, call your friend a bitch.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Tease him for not, for being shorter than you and he doesn't
100%.
like.
But when they're faster than you, shut up about it.
But do it in a loving way.
Sure.
And make sure he knows that you guys are still best friends and you love him and you know that, like, next year when you're freshmen, he's probably going to grow 3 feet and beat your ass.
100%.
It happens all the time.
Shit on you.
Oh my God.
Just a little.
That was so cool going and seeing my the kids that were my 8th graders, seeing them as freshmen. Like, dude, you grew like 36 inches over the summer. Like, you're a you're 2 of you. You're a full on man now. Like, you grow a better mustache than I do. This is crazy. They get so big sometimes.
That's incredible.
It's cool to see them because it like puts it in perspective when you have them in the room. Like, oh, you're gonna be a different species of organism in like 12 months.
T-minus 12.
Yeah, crazy. What else? So do you think that you like explicitly knew that rapport was so important when you started teaching middle schoolers? Or do you think it was more subconscious based on your experiences and having a couple role models when you were a middle schooler? Did somebody tell you like, oh, you gotta Maslow before you can bloom, and you gotta, what do you think was your motivation?
I found it out a lot in my first year. I realized that, so I was given a lot of different, my situation was I had 25 kids. I had an online curriculum, but I had 5 working computers. That was the situation that I had. And I was still expected to cover these standards, expectations, whatnot, figure it out, do your rotations, do your whatever you need to do. So given the limitations that I had within that 5th grade classroom as my first year, I found out that the best way for me to get anybody to do anything was if they cared about me as much as I cared about them. So me learning through this, I could ask them to do tasks that were at the time above their developmental level, but even though they weren't confident in the material, they knew that they were safe with me to where they still tried. So I'll take that. And within that first year, I knew that in order for me to get a kid to do a math problem on the front of the board on the whiteboard with my expo marker, they had to know that I had their back and that nobody else was going to shut them down. So for me, that's what worked. For me, that's what I knew that I could connect with my students on. Not all teachers have that level of comfort in regards to connecting with their kids, making jokes with their kids, finding certain YouTubers or TikTokers or video games or shows, whatever it might be, willing to put in the time to be able to be like, oh, I know what you mean. It's like this. I know what you mean. It's like this. Okay, can we use this as an example? Okay, let's go from here. Those were the moments that I realized that that is my strength. If you can find that within yourself as a new teacher, if you know that you like to experience new things, try new things, do that. Use that to your advantage. If you're willing to learn, use that experience, share your experience with your kids. That is humbling. That is humility. If you can demonstrate that, they will demonstrate that for you.
Take 15 minutes, watch that YouTuber they're talking about.
Do it.
Go watch their teenage girl movie.
And then ask them at least one question or give some statement that said, that you proved it. Those AR points, remember when you responded to those specific questions from those AR points that you would read from those books? Give them one of those questions. Give them one of those responses.
What did you think about that? Wasn't that weird? Wasn't that awkward?
When so-and-so dated so-and-so, oh my God, la tóxica.
That's smart. It seems so simple.
It can be. It can be difficult too, if you're not open to it.
Well, yeah. I mean, neither one of us are 14.
No, not anymore.
No, not for a day or two. Makes it... Because there's so much culture that they ingest at such rapidity.
Yeah.
There's no way to keep up.
No.
That's impossible.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So if they see that you're putting in the effort, you can ask that of them. It's a way to do it.
That's good. Reciprocal, humble.
I'll meet you, you meet me, 50-50.
So to get them engaged, you've got 7th graders that need to learn math.
Yep.
And you're at the beginning of the year figuring out where they're at.
Yep.
And trying to meet them where they're at the best you can. And teaching them that they can learn something even if they don't get it right the first time.
100%. You can learn it without being a failure. You can fail at something without being a failure.
That's growth.
That's hopefully life. If you're in the right circumstances, situation, and in the right environment. Be that teacher, middle schooler, middle school teachers, be that teacher.
Why is that so uncommon? Why in school do we get so many single chance tests? But that's not real. That's not life. That's not the way growth and learning work. It's not even people say, well, we need to get them ready for college. And college doesn't even freaking work that way.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't.
Nope.
Maybe it did 50 years ago. It doesn't now. Like you can, you know, God, I did academic renewal in college to erase some grades from my transcripts because I had a rough semester. And then I dropped out like mid-semester and came back. I had a couple rough ones. Like I went through a divorce in college. That was super fun. But I had a semester where like my dad had a heart attack and my coworker killed himself, like, and a relative died, like all in a 3-week span.
Jesus.
And I was just like, I was not okay.
Yeah.
That would be the best way to describe that. Not
Yeah.
okay. And you can fix that.
Mm-hmm.
You
Humans have grace. What
Yeah.
a concept.
You can even go back and learn the stuff that your brain couldn't do when you were in all of that happening.
In that stressful time, cortisol is a
Yeah,
nightmare.
your brain's not going to do anything. You're not learning anything new. No. It's not biologically going to happen.
Mm-mm.
But you can go back and you can do it. And do you deserve like, especially if you're paying cash for college, like, do you deserve, after having paid 10 grand for that semester, to go back and learn those things and get your transcript fixed because you finally learned them?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
100%.
I think you do. And so does a 13-year-old that took 2 extra weeks to learn how to do my science thing, your math thing, somebody else's, get their essay done for English, learn about this world civilization and history, figure out this musical piece, get their woodshop project done, finish their art project. Like, does that kid who gets to the finish line, but it just took them longer, did they deserve less?
And if it takes them longer, why does it not count? Like for those that think like, oh no, it took them 2 weeks longer, they failed on my arbitrary date. Well, why does it not count if they know it 2 weeks later?
What do you think the arguments against that would be? What's the...
They didn't know it at my time frame. They weren't following along with me. Those that are, typically developing should be performing at this level on this date. But again, those are the individuals that don't have the knowledge and experience to be able to see the time frame and spectrum that target can be acquired. It's relative.
So do you think you see that more in younger, more naive teachers, or in more experienced teachers that are set in a practice? Or
Oh, that's a good one. I actually see a lot more in experienced teachers.
Okay.
Of them. And I would say experienced teachers in regards to those that have been in the game for 20 plus years.
So why do you think it's that group do you think that was just the culture of things back in the day, and it's just kind of set, like that's the way people are doing stuff, like you have to meet the deadline, and if you don't, then there's penalties? Is that just the culture of teaching that was back then?
I believe so, from the way that their justifications have been described. It was more of like, well, back in my day, or I had to, or I've always, versus, well, what's happening in the world? Where are kids right now? What are the experiences? What are their tools that they have? 30 years ago, it's not the same tool belt that our kids have now in middle school. Completely different.
The earth is not the same.
It is
a different dimension.
Different world.
Yeah. 100%.
So that level of strictness, structure, and whatnot, and inflexibility, I found in a lot of my teachers that have been in the game for a longer period of time. My newer teachers are way more open, at least that I've noticed, to making adjustments and adapting to the environment that they're in. And with COVID, especially those that are teaching post-COVID, y'all are damn near Gumby, like in regards to how flexible you're willing to be, which bless you for that. Like we all need it. And it's necessary. It's what has to happen. It's the world is changing. How can we change? We are changing. We have already changed. Are you ready for that? Are you here for that? Are you able to structure an environment for that? If you're not, be open. Ask some questions. Learn simultaneously. Be humble.
Yeah.
It's a process.
I know that we know from the current like behavioral science that imposition of deadlines in that way with kids actually doesn't teach them motivation.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't develop motivation in them.
It's just discouraging.
Yeah, it's just discouraging. Oh, the deadline came, I didn't get it done. That means I failed.
Mm-hmm.
It means I'm not going to be able to learn this. It means I'm not good at math.
Mm-hmm.
It means I'm not good at that. It means I don't like this class. But we know that doesn't work. Doesn't teach the kids really anything.
Mm-mm.
But that science doesn't filter down to people teaching. Like, doesn't get. I mean, do you think if it did, if there was more like professional development, people were learning about the like cognitive science of the day, that it would influence people, or do you think people are just kind of set?
So I thought a lot of the times that people were kind of set in my previous school. It was based on how our professional developments were scheduled and scaffolded.
Mm-hmm.
In this new school that I'm in, this new district, we have professional development every Wednesday. 3 hours.
Oh.
Every Wednesday. Our kids get out at 12, 12:15.
And you've got the whole afternoon.
We got 1 to 4.
Okay.
We are clocked in, logged in. To people that know more than us, have some sort of understanding that we don't have, et cetera, et cetera. It's mandatory. It's not anything that's optional. It doesn't matter how many years you've been there.
Wow. That's great.
It is incredible.
It would probably be so cool for them to use that time to talk to you about why you guys are grading with weighting assessments so heavily. Because I have a feeling, I have a hunch about why they're doing it. But for people to go through that and not be like walked through the science of, hey, this is why this is so important.
Yep.
It seems like you could get teachers that might even push back or be skeptical or not buy into it, or not be prepared to come into a classroom of kids that aren't accustomed to that. Because, I mean, you said the kids were a little apprehensive, a little nervous.
100%.
More than a little.
Yes.
Pants pooping nervous about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really, really apprehensive about any sort of performance, given how much that performance was going to weigh on their grade.
Now you've come to the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
How are they doing?
Well, I have over 70% of my students that have met the standard, not exceeded the standard.
Whoa.
Incredible. I just got our map scores back, and I was just going through. So we have about, like I had mentioned, 3 days left of my school year. So we're getting together their CUME files. We're printing out their map scores, which are their state test scores, seeing where they've been, where they've grown. Have they grown? Have they regressed? Mm-hmm. And the numbers that I'm seeing are incredible in regards to their performance. And I do believe that I have a group currently that is just a high-performing group, a high effort group.
Okay.
Willing to fail, willing to put themselves out there in that degree. And I don't think that all of my, future years are going to be like this. But this year that I have right now, I had a group of kids that building a rapport early enough in the year will give them and me enough of a safety for them to try scary stuff and for them to fail and for them to continue to try after they fail versus taking and assuming the I'm a failure position. That is what not that I don't allow, but I really try to diminish.
For it to work, man, for grading, for education to catch up with what we've learned about how children's brains actually learn and what's best for them, there've got to be people that are really doing it.
Yep.
Because I've noticed the same things you have, certainly in the kids, that when you tell them that, yeah, like we took the test, but you can still learn it and we can still change your grade. They look at you like a crazy person. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. It's done, right? Isn't it not done? What's chapter 2?
We already took that. Well, yeah, but you can still, like, do you think you could, like, you were really close. Like, do you think you could, like, learn that, study that? Like, remember you were absent a day and you missed that? Do you think you could make that up? Or,
What was that mistake?
yeah, why do you think you got that wrong? Like, yeah, of course it matters why you got it wrong. Like, it totally matters. I want you to get it. The point is for you to get all of this, for it to feel easy, for you to feel confident. That's the point. And that's just so foreign to them, the idea of feeling confident in what you know and that you have extra time to learn it. Imagine if we didn't have any teachers anywhere in schools that ever had to retake their C-Best or their C-Sets.
We wouldn't.
Public education would end. Public education would be over.
Yep.
So
I took my English CSET. I think it was my third or fourth one, 2 or 3 times. So yeah, those who were my sophomore English, you would not have had me if I did not get retakes. So bless.
So
bless up.
Yeah. What if we take all the drivers off the road that had to retake their driving test?
Did you have to do your permit test twice?
I don't remember.
I had to do my driving test twice. My permit test, nailed it.
My permit test, I think I nailed that, but the driving test I definitely had to retake. Yep. I was super nervous. I made a stupid mistake and it was like an automatic fail kind of thing.
Me too.
And it was literally like a parallel parking thing, but I did it like completely wrong.
Okay.
Or like making a U-turn and there was something.
I took a right on a red that I shouldn't have taken a right on a red. I should have waited my turn. Right on reds, don't do that if you're doing your driver's test. Just go ahead and hang tight.
Yeah.
Wait till you get your green.
Just wait a minute. You can. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah. All those things, like everything in life, all the way down to college, like you get another chance to figure it out and get better, no matter what it is.
So pull your panties up, whatever it is, untwist them.
Untwist those.
Get ready to do it though. You are ready, whether it is to do the task or at least to try. You're already ready. Get that through your head.
Since you started working in a school where your assessments are weighted so heavily and doing test corrections, giving students abilities, like a pathway to raise their grade through increased knowledge, through increased understanding, have you had conversations about it with people that are working other places or doing things differently? Like, have you had any like disagreements with people that don't like the idea?
I've had some pushback from actually a few of my colleagues in regards to how are you getting them ready for high school if they're having opportunities to retest or to go over, these incorrect answers and get over, or about a 90%. How are you getting them ready? And my thought is, if they're not quitting, how am I not getting them ready? If they're still asking me questions, how is that not getting them ready for high school? If they didn't quit, I'm winning. We're winning.
100%.
So that is my debate. I'm getting lots of pushback in regards to you're not getting them ready for high school by giving them a 90% when they're able to, basically do the test over, the same test. It's like, yeah, sure. They are correcting their mistakes by themselves or with me, as that structured base and explaining to me what their mistake was. If they're willing to do that and go over their own work, buddy, I win.
Totally.
We win.
Especially if you have some kind of evidence that they are whatever that learning target was, whatever standard, whatever skill you're working on. If you have some evidence that after that point they can now do that skill,
yep,
then absolutely you've won. because that kid did extra work in order to learn something that they hadn't learned yet.
Yep.
That's tough to have those conversations, though. People get very impassioned about things like deadlines.
Yep.
And the way I grade.
Oof.
I'm going to grade you.
Yep.
Like, more impassioned about that than anything, it
Yep.
seems. It's like...
It's a pride thing, it almost seems like.
Do you think so?
100%.
Because people get emphatic about it. It's at the level of, like, religion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe in this. Like...
And you're wrong.
Right, and I'm right and you're wrong.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels icky.
It does. It is an icky feeling. And it's not realistic developmentally in regards to those absolutes of being able to learn something in a certain period of time and not giving that grace. It's just not realistic. It's an expectation that you will have a chunk of kids that will meet because they will be anxious enough and nervous enough and will have enough support at home that they will do damn near whatever going above and beyond because they have the resources. But those kids that don't, you're going to shut them down by not providing that opportunity or not giving them that threshold of acceptance that your learning does not affect me in regards to my pride or how good I am of a person. It's more of, where are you at? What do you know? What do you need to know? Let's do it. That's the only approach to have. Takes time.
Takes time with the kids, but it seems like it takes even more time with the adults.
Oof. You got to be intrinsically sound or working towards that if you're going to try and manage middle school.
Especially if you're going to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Like anybody working in middle school, you work with people that have been doing it for a long time.
Yep.
But is what they're doing working? That's always it seems like the best question and the least asked question. Like, is what you're doing working? Because if it was working, if what you do to teach kids about deadlines worked, then all of the kids would be meeting deadlines by the end of the school year.
Yep.
In 9 months, you would teach them how to meet deadlines. But the data would suggest that they're not affected in any significant way.
Yep.
Like, so by quarter 4, you have 0 late work. Oh no, you have the exact same amount of late work. So what you're doing is bullshit.
Got it.
It doesn't do anything. Do you understand that connection? That's really tough, especially as a science-minded person to see that happen. To go, okay, well, the data would suggest that what you do doesn't work. I don't understand what we're doing.
Yep. Give me some buy-in.
I want to buy in. I want to at least understand what you're doing. You're telling me it works, but the data says that it doesn't. Because anything you examine like that, like, well, I need to make sure that they know this. Okay.
Yeah.
Show me data. You should have 20 years worth of data. Show me any proof that doing that taking half credit off when kids turn something in late, is that helping them learn more? Are they learning more that way? Or, I tell you what I found. After reading this book, I'm going to loan you this Grading for Equity book, Joe Feldman. Great.
So stoked.
Oh, it's good. There's a lot of nuggets in there, and it's really evidence supported. Like, there's a lot of cited research in there. It's really good. It's not just purely theoretical.
Cool.
You know, it's really good. After reading that, I realized, like, oh, this points-based system that I've been using, because that's the only thing I knew how to do, because my credential program didn't teach about grading whatsoever.
Gosh.
Like, wasn't talked about for 3 seconds.
What a disservice.
Yeah. Well, and I guess a lot of them are I guess it's not uncommon for grading to be minimally, if at all, addressed. Despite the fact that now we do have like a growing body of like even peer-reviewed, published research on the topic, and it's growing. So I just started off with like whatever I knew how to do, which is basically like what I experienced in high school and college, like what I could remember. So we've got like a points-based system and weighted categories and all that. And then I realized like, oh, this is incentivizing kids to cheat. I wonder how much they're cheating.
How much can you work our system?
Yeah. And then I realized during COVID, during the distance learning, that like, oh, these kids, especially the ones that are a little bit savvy, like the ones that are good at school to begin with, they have invented complex systems of coordinated cheating. And they'll admit to it openly, like, oh yeah,
we figured this out month 1, Mr. Schulke.
Yeah, we figured out your bullshit system and how to work it, because guess what? When your grade measures something arbitrary but achievable, we'll just do that because that's way less work than
for sure
dealing with listening to you and doing all this busy work and whatever. Because yeah, if your grade doesn't measure academic achievement, if it measures compliance behaviors or handing you pieces of paper by a given date and time, then that's what the kids will do, whatever that takes. So I surveyed the kids, and informally and then formally.
Okay.
Formally, I did a form survey where they had to respond, and it collected their email addresses so I can see who said what.
Cool.
And I just promised them, like, I promise you, I will never share your individual responses with another adult. No adult, no child, no other human being will ever know what you as an individual said. Just me. Because I want to know. So if you trust me, be honest.
Yep.
And I got like over 80% of the kids on that farm admitted that while in middle school, so 7th and 8th grade, this is at the very beginning of 8th grade, they admitted that, yes, I have cheated and copied work while in middle school.
Cool.
And a third of them admitted to doing it in my class.
Oh, okay.
By like 2 months into the year.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah. So like, okay, that tells me everyone's cheating. Like damn near everyone. It's happening all the time, and it's happening a lot just for my class because I have deadlines and there's late penalties, and they're like, well, if, my grade is associated to points and I lose points by turning this in late, like it doesn't matter if I learned it or not.
Yeah. I need to turn it in.
It matters whether all of these blanks have a thing in them and it goes in the box on time. That's what matters. And when I saw those data, I probably wept. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I've taken the learning out of this class. They have no incentive to learn. They have incentive to cheat and to bargain and manipulate and try to get points out of this points-based economy. And maybe they don't explicitly know it, but that's what they're after.
Success. That is their success.
Yeah, the letter on the piece of paper, whatever it takes to get that letter. And so taking those motivations away and introducing a system where now the only thing we're going to measure is what you can do. Like how much you know and how you can apply it to do something. Because all of our standards are written for that.
Yep.
Math, the science, the history, the PE, the art, the drama, all of it. Like everything. All the standards for all the subjects are all higher level learning, like DOK 3 and higher.
Yep.
They're all performance based.
DOK, depth of knowledge.
Yes. Webb's depth of knowledge. They're all like, can you apply this? Can you analyze? Can you synthesize? Can you compare, contrast, whatever? And in science, it's like all the science and engineering practice. Can you develop and use a model to do this? Can you analyze, interpret data to do this? Can you design an experiment to do this? So that's impossible to measure with a multiple choice test.
100%. Every time.
Every time. Can't be done. So if you have multiple choice questions on your final sucks. It's not measuring.
That's the only thing?
Right. Those questions are great for formative, like
Sure.
building up. Like,
Do you know the vocab?
do you know the vocab? Do you know what all these big words we're using mean? Do you know what all these historical people, who they are and what they did and where they lived and what they were involved in?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about all these different things about the government and the religion and the whatever, and do you know what an exponent is? Do you know what a this? Do you know what a logarithm is? Do you know what a spectrum of light is? Do you know any of these things? Those are great for that. Let's make sure you're getting the basics along the way.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't affect your grade, because that should just tell me, did I teach it well enough for almost all of you to know it yet?
Exactly.
And did it identify the people that need a little bit extra, that need to come in and do a little bit extra vocab exercise? Do we as a class need to play a vocab game or do a trivia game on Friday so that we know that you guys really get it? So maybe you'll learn it by people teasing you and you getting it wrong and whatever. Like, do we need to do that? But it should not affect your grade. The only thing I should be grading you on, if my grades are going to mean anything, if that number is going to have any value, it should measure what you know and know how to do.
Yep.
Within my content area. And that's it. And we went to that. The kids peed their pants a little.
Yeah.
Because I told them, like, hey, we're going to this system where your whole grade, it's all going to be what you guys kind of know as tests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like calling them that because all I'm doing is like assessing where you're at. But guess what? If you're not there yet, we're going to do like test retakes.
Yep.
The path to a retake has requirements. Like, if I look at your notebook and you didn't do half of the lessons leading up to that because you chose not to use your class time for that, or you were sick or you were absent and you just missed it,
Sure.
then we know why you got it wrong.
Yeah.
Because you didn't do the work to learn it. So that's your path. Before you do a retake, you go back, you do the work to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
Get these things done. Come into my lunchtime tutoring. Come get help. Make sure that you know it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're ready, when we'll know you're ready because you've at least done those things that you should have done to learn it in the first place, then you can retake it. And if you've already retaken that and you still don't get it, well, then we also know, like, you did the stuff and that didn't work for you.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Absolutely.
Because maybe your brain needs to see it or hear it or experience it or read it or write it or experiment with it or touch it to learn it in a different way than other people. And that's fine. And once they experienced that, almost 100% buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got 160 kids this year, 150 something. Out of all the feedback I gathered on a recent survey, it was like 98% positive about grading this way.
You created a safe environment. They knew that if they failed, it wasn't failure. It was not understanding it yet.
And I love using that language. Like, guys, we're taking a diagnostic today. What does a diagnostic do? Measures where we're at right now. It measures how easy it is so far.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's it. So do you need to cheat? Nope. What if you don't get it yet? Then we'll know.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
It's okay. That's my job to help you if you don't get it yet.
That's it. 10 minutes. Please be respectful. Quiet time while we're testing. Thank you.
Put your hair down.
Yeah. Creating that environment, taking an 8th grader and having one, like, our standards in science are huge. The NGSS standards are like, it's 3 pages of success criteria for
and
each.
You have state testing in 8th grade.
And we have state testing. So for kids to, have like 1 standard in the grade book or 3 standards in the grade book for a quarter, that's huge. That's a lot. It's overwhelming for them to have like 1 project, 1 thing that has a bunch of components building up to it. It's a lot of pressure, but they like it better. Almost all of them, when they understand, like, oh, this system's actually like easier to game than the points one because there's no guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, can I talk my teacher into letting me do extra credit?
Yeah.
It's not about schmoozing or being charming.
It's about doing it.
It's 100% like what's in my brain. Mm-hmm. And a few kids feel insecure about that.
Sure.
Because there are a lot of kids that are good at school. Like, they're very compliant and very well behaved. And they sit up straight with their hands in their lap. And they face forward and they say please and thank you. But maybe math's a little bit harder for them. It takes them a little bit more time.
Yep.
Science, they don't really enjoy it that much.
No, not much to connect with that they can see.
Yeah, so it doesn't suit their personality and what they're into. So so they're apprehensive. You're like, man, I actually have to learn this in order to get an A. Like, not only do I have to learn it, but like a B is 8th grade level and an A is beyond that. And I'm nervous about my grade.
It's okay to be nervous.
It is, absolutely.
Means you're ready.
It is. But we'll go through one quarter where you don't get the grade you really hoped for.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize it is based on your effort. Like,
Really
not
is.
your effort, but your learning. And your
Mhm.
learning requires effort. So now you
Mhm.
learn that about yourself. Like, oh, science isn't my strong subject, but I'm going to have to take science classes forever. So I'm going to have to come in at lunch for tutoring once a week.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's part of my schedule.
I'm going to have to do extra homework. I'm going to have to make sure that I get it. Yeah. Okay. All right. I got that.
Sign her up.
Yeah. I see that as way more valuable than any other stuff. Like, they don't need a deadline
No.
to do that. And if it does take them longer, but they do the work, and I'll go back and change their transcript grade for a previous quarter.
Me too. If I can. If I have access to it, hell yeah. They learned it. As of this point, they learned it.
They learned it. They learned it. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and what happens, you have a kid who has a family member die the last 2 weeks of the quarter.
Yep.
Like, what, they get a D forever?
Yep.
That kid goes from an A to a D and they keep that grade forever.
Yep.
No, they didn't.
That is the reminder of that trauma. If they're not able to learn from that, then they are stuck there.
Yeah, they've got a scar, on their record. Like, no, you just got to learn that thing. That's all. Come in at lunch. Let's get a little refill. It'd be fun.
Talk to me.
Book club it.
Yes.
Talk about it chapter by chapter. Unpack it, like right here, recorded. Put it out there.
Would love it.
You and
want
me.
to do that for this?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to?
Yep.
Got the summer, right?
Sure. We absolutely do.
We got the whole summer.
Mm-hmm.
And go through it like chapter by chapter. Talk about it together. Do a bunch of quick, like half hour, like unpack one chapter in like 20, 30 minutes.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What are the big bullet points? What are the takeaways?
100%.
New teacher, you're thinking about your grading? Think about this.
Love it.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'll get some reading in. I got some homework, y'all. Don't worry.
I got a whole list of good ideas here of stuff for us to talk about. And we talked about some of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we hit, man, if something's on your mind and you have a lot to say about it, it probably means it's important.
Yes.
And so I love letting a conversation like this just do what it's going to do.
Agreed.
Because it's all super important. There's none of it that's unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
The being nice to children bit, that's huge.
Mm-hmm. It's a skill. And it's not a skill that everyone has. Let's make this clear. Just because you want to be a teacher does not mean that you have the skills at this point right now to be a teacher.
Man. I told you before we started recording about I lectured in a credential program back in December. It was super fun. And I remember asking a question and getting a response from a student in the class. Well, those professors with whom I lectured in their class,
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really a lecture. I was just kind of presenting what I was doing grading wise. I'm not a professor. I don't profess things. But just showing them like how my grading was working and some of the data I had about it. But this student, this credential candidate, quit the credential program. And talking to, one of the professors, they were able to tell me like some of the reasons why. And that candidate had a realization that it wasn't for them.
Cool.
But I think a lot of people don't have that realization. They have an idea of like, oh, I like kids. Well, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Or I like math.
I like math. Okay, I like kids and I like math. Well, we're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
But what does I like kids mean? You've met kids that you like.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like all kids? Do you like all of them all the time? Would you like, what about the worst behaved kid you'd ever met? Now you have 32 of them at one time. Do you like that?
Do you
Because
like
that's the
kids?
job we're talking about.
Those are kids.
Those are kids. Do you like pubescent boys that have no dad and act like jerks? Do you like them? Because that's going to be a large percentage of your kids. You're going to have multiple of those in your class. Do you have kids that don't have parental engagement? Do you like kids that are just going through really emotionally difficult stuff and just can't focus in your class because they biologically cannot? Like, do you like that? Do you like it when they don't like you? Do you like it when they pop attitude with you? Because that's normal. That's healthy.
Sure is.
Like, do you like all those things? Because maybe you like the idea of kids, but you don't really like them as much as you think you do.
What's your experience? What do you really know?
Yeah. Did you, your credential program, did you have like immersive experiences while you're going through? Did you have to go like shadow and view a bunch of different classes and get some experience before they would let you progress? That's good.
We had a child development center at our school that a lot of our professors that had children, they would just have their kids go to the child development center as their like babysitting
child care service.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as child development majors, we would go into the center and we would be the teachers for that day, or we would be, the chaperones for the field trip, or we would be, and this was multiple times a week, every single week for that semester, of having those experiences of being in those environments and like, do you really like it? Do you really like herding cats? Do you have some skills with that? If you do, let's use that. Do you have your energy to grow? Because you're going to grow every single year. If you're not growing, you're not doing it right.
Every single year until you are out of the classroom. Not until you feel comfortable.
Oh, yeah. You should never be comfortable in a classroom. And I mean in regards to what could be better. Things could always be better.
Why does that rub people the wrong way? I in my previous career, I worked in like continuous quality improvement with healthcare. So my whole job was, which is really good as somebody who wasn't told very much as a child that people were proud of them. It's easy for me to look at things and find everything that's wrong with it. So to work in a continuous quality improvement environment where like my job is to look at even good quality healthcare and find what's wrong with it. And then invent a path for improving that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, were we 80% good? Well, okay, then our goal is now 90. And what kind of training or education or development or new equipment or improvement of processes do we do to get there? So to look at education that way, like, oh, I'm going to be terrible at this for my entire career. Meaning, no, I'm not staying terrible. I'm developing new skills. I'm getting better all the time. And hopefully I even start from a good enough place of wanting to do it for the right reasons that I'm good at it just because I'm there on purpose.
Yeah.
But no, like the kids are going to change. Their culture is going to change. The technology is going to change. The curriculum is going to change. The standards are going to change. It's all going to change nonstop for my entire career. Period. I can't get comfortable.
No.
So it means nonstop adaptation. Well, I love that. Creative problem solving. Yes, that's my bag. Thinking, learning, reading new things, collaborating, going to conferences, talking to people that have different ideas, that know more than I do. Yes, that sounds like my career. That sounds like my career. Like improvise, adapt to things, creative problem solve, have intellectual conversations, learn about stuff I don't know about.
Interpersonal skills.
Oh my God, interpersonal skills. Nobody tells teachers that like, a huge portion of your job is working with other adults, right? Like more than half of it is working in a team with a bunch of other adults.
I know it's a new concept, but buckle up.
Yeah. That's
Take some time.
Yeah. If it's your first career, definitely. If it's your first career, if you go into it straight out of, go undergrad, credential program, then you're bright, shiny, whatever, 26-year-old brand new teacher.
Mm-hmm.
That can be, I imagine, that can be a lot. Was that your journey?
A
Like
little bit
pretty-
overwhelming. It was a very sink or swim approach in regards to my first year of teaching. But that was an environment as stressful and exhausting as it was. I learned the most from that. So that was my constructivist environment. I had, my materials, I had my problem, I had my end goal.
Mhm.
But in order to get there, it was really a lot of guess and check on my end. And that made it so that those lessons that I learned, I will remember for the rest of my teaching days of how to start my first week, when to start curriculum, how to approach certain students, never having public debates, always private conversations. If I'm going to have a private conversation with you, I'm never going to be standing above you. I'm going to be squatting down below you so that you have that high ground. Those types of approaches really early in the game that made it work for me are my tools. That's my tool belt.
It's a useful skill set.
Mm-hmm. So far, for at least what I'm doing.
Yeah. What do you want to do?
Teach teachers.
Mm-hmm.
It's the end goal. I got to learn a lot more about what all teachers do.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like one way to teach teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Cool thing is occasionally we get people that are a little bit different.
It's the best part.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't just want to be teaching the new teachers. It seems like we're really sounds like at your district where you are, you guys have a lot of professional development that goes on,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of active learning. I know that's not universally true.
Yep.
It seems like a big area for industry improvement is for the learning to keep happening. Because it's not ongoing. It's not continuing education. It's possible to stagnate intellectually.
Absolutely. Have those plateaus.
Totally. Well, this has been the opposite of that. This has been really
Gorgeous.
stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
We should do it more.
Little book club, grading for equity.
We could book club that book. We could talk about all the things that we talked about talking about and didn't. There's a
Love
lot.
it.
There's a lot there.
To be continued.
Absolutely. Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks, Jake.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for watching and listening. I hope that you're leaving with something to think about, talk about, share with others, and maybe even ideas to help develop your own teaching practice. To support this project, please subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, and of course, we appreciate all of the likes, reviews, and comments on all of your favorite podcast platforms. I'm Jake Schulke, and this has been the Grand Unified Podcast, a production of Links Learning Labs. Happy teaching, happy learning.